Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku became the monster they feared part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story Renegade Jack Wattpad. So let's start the video. Credit to Okumyo name. Izuku Midoriya age, 15 birth date, July 15, 2143 blood type, O favorite food, katsudon, red meat quirk government files quirk, reactionary mutation quirk type. Mutation user's quirk mutates the body to prevent further harm to user. Mutations don't affect appearance unless in dire circumstances, e.g. wings, tail, extra limbs. Carapace will revert to previous form with some improvements. User has subconscious need to mutate themselves to further improve biology. Reduced risk association to pain or harmful situations and substances. Potential, high quirk encrypted file on laptop quirk. Adaptation user's quirk adapts the body to be immune to harm the more it is exposed to it. Adaptations defy the laws of physics, allowing resistances to infinitely scale. Example, user places hand into roaring flame. The user's skin become increasingly resistant to the flames without altering skin appearance. User's body can obtain adaptations from other beings upon contact. Example, fire creation user is touched, a text box appears, flame resistance gained/increased. On contact, user gains the adaptations at the same potency as the subject. Text boxes only shows current adaptations. Example adaptations, cell malleability, muscle density, reduced muscle decay, extreme temperature resistance, show more. They say the power doesn't make the man, it is how it is used which decides who they are. It was the biggest lie the world has ever told. People are unaccepting of the unnatural, grotesque, shiver-inducing. How you look and how your quirk functions determines how you are perceived. If it is similar to heroes of legend, then you are treated as their second coming, but if it requires the pain of others or has been used by the evils of old, you are looked at with fear, jealousy, and contempt, as they look for every sign you may become what they most dread. Your quirk is quite amazing, young man. You'll be a great hero in the future. Dr. Tsubasa said proudly while ruffling Izuku's head. Izuku looks up in excitement as he is in his own head wondering what quirk would bring such reaction from the doctor. What is his quirk, doctor? Inko asked curiously. Well, his quirk allows his body to mutate to defend itself from harm. It also allows him regeneration, which I believe will continue to grow as he ages. He'll be unstoppable if he is exposed to the right stimuli for long enough. As the doctor is saying this, he tries to use the needle he had used to take Izuku's BLD. The needle bends as it tries to pierce his skin. The doctor then tries other areas of the body. The result is the same. Mom, can I tell Kaken tomorrow? Izuku asked excitedly. Sure, thank you, doctor. Inko and Izuku then left. No problem, Ms. Midoriya, Dr. Tsubasa replies. As Dr. Tsubasa sits there, he sighs and goes to the lab to study the BLD sample taken from the boy. As he sat down at the desk, he notices the sample seems to be discolored. Perplexed, he decided to pour a small amount into a petri dish. As soon as the BLD hit the glass, it dried. The doctor took the dried sample to a microscope and began examining it. It looked just like normal dead BLD cells. The doctor looked over at the remaining sample in cold storage. They were all dry and dead. This would have been a great breakthrough in the project. Maybe not all is lost. The MSTR may find great use for the boy. As Inko and Izuku left the clinic and got into their car, Izuku's excitement wears off and he notices a small letter icon with a red dot on the corner in his peripheral vision. Izuku focusing on it causes a text box to pop up. Adaptations, heightened mental acuity, cell longevity. He didn't really understand the words shown to him, so he asked his mom. What does asi and logixi mean? Wow, those are big words. Where did Aizu hear it from? It says it right here. Izuku points at the air right in front of him. Seeing this worries her. This must be from his quirk. I should get a second opinion. That's great, Aizu. That first word is ai, which means how good you are at something. The second word is longjisiktai, which means how long things last for or how long something lives. Oh, Iza, do you want to go meet Quirk Doctor to know what your quirk actually does? Okay. The ride home continues in silence with Izuku imagining what his quirk could do and how he'd be just like All Might with it, while Inko was worried of what this quirk has in store for her baby boy. When they got home, Izuku bolts towards the computer. Inko, sighing, knew exactly what he was doing. Watching his favorite video of All Might's biggest rescue. Inko then puts away the groceries and began doing some chores around the apartment. She was walking past the computer room. She expected to hear the awe-inspiring voice of All Might, but she heard the sounds of quiet mumbling. Inko peers into the room to see Izuku reading an article. She stood there for a minute as Izuku seemed to not understand something and opened a new tab to search for it. Izu, what are you reading? Surprised, Izuku suddenly jolts up, his knee hitting the underside of the table. He seemed to not notice this as he turns towards his mother. I wanted to know more about the words I saw. Inko looks closer at the article. It was about immortality quirks and how they would hypothetically work to keep a person alive for a long period of time, and on the other tab was the definition of biological immortality. Izuku, can you please tell me what words you see exactly? Izuku then recites what he sees word for word. Heightened mental acuity and cell longevity. Do these only words appear after he is hurt? Then why there is no piercing resistance after not being harmed by the needle? There must another reason he gains these adaptations. Okay honey, let's go to that quirk doctor tomorrow after school, okay? Okay, alright, do you have any homework to do? You have been sitting here a while. Oh, there was some. Izuku quickly runs off to his school bag to get his supplies. Inko, having carefully checked on Izuku's knee while they were talking, knew he was fine. She has a look under the desk to see if there was any damage. There were scuff marks and a slight dent on the underside of the desk. It looked like someone lightly took a mallet to the desk. I guess I don't need to worry too much about him getting hurt, though Izu not noticing he was hurt might be a problem. An old bespectacled man can be seen passing through a dark purple fog into a lab. Walking to an office, he knocks lightly to pronounce his presence. Come in, doctor. A cold yet familiar voice calls out to the old man. Yes, sorry for disturbing your rest at this hour. The door opens to a large office. A large desk in the middle and an armchair to the side. A white-haired man is seated in the armchair wearing a white dress shirt with rolled-up sleeves along with dress pants and shoes. His jacket hung around the office chair at his desk. The man sets down his wine glass on a table to the side and looks toward the doctor. No worries, old friend. Take a seat and tell me of what have you learned that needed my urgent attention. It was a quirk, sir. I believe it will be of great use for the inevitable battle with your nemesis. Oh, it must be amazing for you to come here personally to inform me. Do tell me, what is it? It is a mutation quirk allowing the user's body to adapt to any harm that comes to them, eventually immunity to such harm. The younger man shivers in excitement. Oh, doctor, you've outdone yourself. I trust you were able to get samples of their BLD for the Nomu project. The excitement on his face fades as the doctor shrinks away in shame. Unfortunately, sir, there was some complications. It appears that the quirk has countermeasures against its cloning. The samples die within minutes in the bags, but exposed to air it dies immediately. The dried BLD appears as normal dead red BLD cells. The two men sit in silence planning their next move. The younger man speaks. Have your personnel monitor the child. We will retrieve it when the time is right. Yes, sir, it will be done. The doctor leaves, leaving the man to his thoughts. A great tool for both good and evil. An unstoppable, immortal being immune to all the harm you can dish out, my nemesis. It will be a great day as I watch you fight an unwinnable battle and perish at my hand at the grand stage of the whole world. A whitish blue-haired child peeks through the door. Sensei, was that the doctor? Why was he here this late? The man looks at the child with a fatherly gaze. Nothing to worry about, child. The end of the legacy of All Might draws near. You should go back to bed. Yes, Sensei. The boy grins in excitement. And that's it for Chapter 1. Tell me what you think in the comments on this chapter. Oh, I'm writing this on the fly. There is no plan. Don't expect anything to make sense and plot holes 𝗧𝗪. Expect the next chapter within the next week or so. I have some ideas, so it might be here sooner than later, no promises. Till next time, Chapter 2, Friendships. Izuku wakes up bright and early, excited to tell Kaken about his quirk. Inko prepares breakfast while Izuku quickly sets the table. Wow, someone's excited. Inko sets down breakfast. Itadakimasu. Izuku quickly scarfs down his breakfast and goes to pick up his bag. Bye, Mom. Have a great day at school. Izuku was walking on the street, absent-mindedly imagining what Kaken would say when he found out what his quirk was. He bumps into someone. Oh, sorry. He looks up to a person wearing a bartender's uniform and a weird metal neck brace. Their body was made of dark purplish fog and he had bright yellow wispy eyes. He looks like he was just done shopping, his bag filled with cup noodles and chips along with a bottle of soda. No worries, child, you should get going. You don't want to be late to school. Embarrassed, Izuku quickly walks away out of sight of the man, continuing on his way. As he was walking, the icon in his vision once again has a red dot in the corner. Spatial awareness adapted. Izuku looked at the words in confusion. More new words. Izuku suddenly feels someone reaching over his shoulder. He quickly turns around and steps back. Hey nerd. How did you know I was gonna scare you? Did you get your quirk? Oh, good morning, Kaken. I did get mine. I think me knowing you were there was a part of it. Well, spit it out then. What quirk did you get? My quirk lets me get less hurt by stuff I've already been hurt by. I also get better faster. Oh, you'll be a great practice dummy. I want to try something. Bakugo places his hand on Izuku and lets off some sparks onto Izuku's exposed arm. Ow! Bakugo pulls his hand away, revealing scorch marks and red skin which is visibly turning back to normal. Izuku begins rubbing the spot, removing the soot, and his arm was good as new. Wow, you really are a practice dummy. An unbreakable one. But Kaken, I can be a hero with this as good as All Might. As if your quirk can't beat up villains. You'll just stand there and distract them until a real hero arrives. Kaken, I'll be able to rescue people using it. Who cares about helping people? They can get out themselves. Beating villains, that's what it means to be a hero. They continue arguing as they walk, causing confused looks from passers-by. Bakugo also tries to use his quirk on Izuku again, but it only leaves soot on his arm. The two boys arrive at their desk. Some of Izuku's classmates come up to him. Hey Midoriya, did you get your quirk yet? Before he can answer, Bakugo does it for him. His quirk turns him into a practice dummy. He can't get hurt by anything he's been hurt by before. Also, Bakugo lets off a larger explosion on Izuku's arm, blowing some skin off. The other children were shocked by this, but not as much as watching the skin slowly stick itself closed, leaving a slowly fading scar surrounded by dried blood drops. Some of them GG at the sight of the healing wound. Why, Kaken? Don't be such a crybaby. Look, the scar is already gone. He looks down at his arm. The only evidence of the blast was a few drops of flaking dried blood. Good morning, class. The children jump and quickly get into their seats. Good morning, miss. Okay, now, a little birdie told me that one of you got your quirk. Can you tell me who it is? It's Midoriya, miss. He heals when he gets hurt, and the next time he won't be hurt by it anymore. That's a wonderful quirk. Class continues as normal, though Izuku feels a few gazes on him. He glances at the icon. The red dot is there once again. Kinetic shock resistance adapted, heightened eardrum durability adapted, heat resistance adapted, more adaptations. How do I keep getting them? He thinks through the day, trying to find a pattern which gave him adaptations. I've touched two people today, that smoke guy at the store and Kaken. The last two sound like it would make using explosion easier. I have to make sure. As Izuku was walking home, he decided to test his theory. Looking around, he finds an All Might impersonator performing to a small crowd. Izuku gets to the front of the crowd. Now I'll need a volunteer for my next show of strength. How about you, young man? He was pointing at Izuku. He steps forward and he was picked up and thrown up into the air a few feet. The impersonator jumps up to catch him and lands on the ground safely to the crowd's cheers. He whispers, "𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧, I hope I didn't scare you too much, young man. I can't be scared, I'm going to be a hero like you." The impersonator laughs and the crowd disperses. Izuku continues his way home. He focuses on the icon. Heightened reflexes, slight potency increase. Spatial awareness, heightened stamina efficiency, adapted heightened bone density, adapted heightened muscle density, adapted heightened mental processing, adapted mental strain resistance, adapted heightened muscle growth rate, adapted, must have touched some people in the crowd. There's so many, and the faster muscle growth must be from the fake All Might. Potency. Excited and happy to figure out why adaptations were gained, he makes his way home. I figured how the new words appear. Really? How did you do it? Izuku begins to explain his thoughts and how he confirmed his hypothesis. Wait, Katsuki blew up your arm. Inko quickly checks Izuku's arms, finding no evidence of harm. His arms feel firmer than usual. Mom, it's okay, it was just a small one and it healed quickly anyway, it's fine. Okay, I'm still telling your Aunt Mitsuki about this, and don't run into crowds, you could have gotten hurt. Okay. The two have their lunch and prepared for their appointment. Are you ready? Yeah, let's go. The both left in their car and set off to their appointment to truly understand the full capabilities of Izuku's quirk. Next time, Chapter 3, Unyielding Potential. Inko and Izuku arrive at the office. The building moderately large with a quirk consultant sign on the front door of the first floor. There was also a quirk gym nearby. They walked into the office and spoke to the receptionist. Good afternoon. You here for the appointment, Mrs. Midoriya? All right, just follow her. A woman beckons them over with a wave and leads them to the consultant's office. In the office was two couches facing each other with a coffee table in between with blocks, and a doctor's toy sat upon it. A desk is placed to the right of them with a computer and a few document sorters on its corner. Behind the desk on the wall were cabinets presumably full of files. Mrs. Midoriya, please have a seat. The Midoriyas take a seat in the couches with the consultant sitting across from them. With a polite smile, he introduced himself. My name is Okabe Tsutomu and my quirk is Quirk Mirror. I can copy a quirk by touching someone with my palm. I assume that you're the lucky Midoriya. What have you discovered since you found out about your quirk yesterday? There's a letter icon in the corner of my vision, and when I focus on it, a list of adaptations pop out. Adaptation are added when I touch someone. So you can copy quirks of those you touch? No, just the adaptations people have which support the quirk. They continue to discuss the details of the quirk. The consultant ponders for a moment and holds out his hand. I want to try something. Can I use your quirk, please? My quirk only activates if the person I'm touching consents to their quirk being used. Just say yes if you agree. Yes. Izuku holds the outstretched hand. Okabe sees the icon he was talking about with a red dot in the corner. He focuses on it. Adaptations: heightened mental acuity, cell longevity, spatial awareness, kinetic shock resistance, heightened eardrum durability, heat resistance, heightened reflexes, heightened stamina efficiency, heightened bone density, heightened muscle density, heightened mental processing, mental strain resistance, heightened muscle growth rate, quirk strain immunity. I just got one from you, sir. It's 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗏. Quirk strain immunity. Okabe looks lost as he processes this. It made sense. He has never experienced quirk strain while using someone else's quirk, let alone his own. He starts to explain what effects that these adaptations could have on Izuku. The most shocking was cell longevity, with the potential to make him biologically immortal, and with the adaptive side of the quirk, maybe full immortality. Midoriya, can you sit by my side and Miss Midoriya pick up one of the blocks and throw it at me? Izuku stands and sits at Okabe's side. Okabe closes their eyes and nods to signal that he is ready. Inko lightly tosses the block to the left of Okabe at the empty spot on the couch. As the block was getting closer to the couch, Okabe quickly catches it with his left hand and opens his eyes. So that's how that feels. One more test, throw it one more time. He lets go of Izuku's hand and Inko repeats the action. He holds his hand up in the trajectory of the block. The block hits his hand and loses all momentum, falling straight down onto the table, bouncing into the other blocks. In shock, he whispers. He collects himself. Midoriya, can you tell me who you got these adaptations from? Izuku began telling him where he got his adaptations: his mom, Dr. Tsubasa, fog person, Kaken, unknown people in a crowd, an All Might impersonator, and finally the consultant himself. Okay, I think I can summarize his quirk. It is a quirk which allows his body to adapt so that it is no longer affected by a harmful stimuli and has the ability to copy adaptations of other quirk users by touch. Okay, I'll remember that. Oh, you have yet to record your quirk into the system. I have a suggestion if you wouldn't mind. What is it? Don't put the full description of the quirk into the system. But I've had people I've consulted go missing after coming here. I don't know if this is the work of quirk supremacists or the Hero Public Safety Commission, but I do know they have access to the full undoctored quirk registry. I suggest you put only part of it in, mainly the adapting from harm along with minor regeneration. Name the quirk reactive mutation as to not cause suspicion. This might not keep all surveillance off you, but you'll be lower on their list. Inko has a worried look on her face as Izuku has a confused face looking for Inko to make a decision. I'll keep that in mind, Tsutomu-san. Inko and Izuku get up to leave. By the way, I'm sure you've noticed the quirk gym nearby. You should sign him up. He might be able to gain more adaptation safety there. Oh, alright. Thank you for your time, Tsutomu-san. Bye, mister. He'll be a hero one day with potential that he'll surpass All Might sooner than later. Inko and Izuku left the office. Izuku suggests that Kaken join him to go to a quirk gym, but Inko informs him that Katsuki doesn't like going because it was boring. They got into their car, went to the government office to register his quirk as the consultant suggested. They got a few weird looks as Izuku tried to get closer to some of the adults in line. Potency increased. Heightened mental processing. They then went to a quirk gym nearby their home to get Izuku a gym membership. After that they went home. Life continues as normal for a few months. School was fine, though other students seems to be avoiding him except for Bakugo, who has been getting aggressive, launching larger and larger explosions at Izuku, though it only makes his skin slightly red and dirty. Izuku has been going to the gym during this time. He has been breaking record after record of physical abilities for his age. There was also many different quirks there he hadn't seen before. Reduced muscle decay rate, adapted heightened flexibility, adapted heightened stamina regeneration, adapted potency increase, heightened stamina efficiency potency increase, heightened bone density potency increase, rapid muscle growth potency increase, heightened muscle density potency increase, heightened reflexes. The name changed. Is it better now? There were a few times Bakugo had been hurting someone with Izuku jumping into the blast to protect them and coming out unscathed, though which his clothes trashed. Inko was not happy about that. Are you okay? Why did you save me? I'm quirkless. Izuku was surprised by this. He hadn't met a quirkless person before. But because that's what heroes do. It doesn't what you are. A hero will always be willing to save you. Izuku helps the boy up. Physical adaptation limiter removed. What? Next time, Chapter 4, Receding Tides. Izuku, after helping the kid up, he gave him a few words of encouragement and went home. Along the way his mind was spinning with questions on what the pop-up meant. Physical adaptation limiter removed. Did he have a quirk? It might mean that there was a limit to the amount of adaptations I could get from others, a limit to the potency of the adaptation, or a limit to the harm that can be negated. Izuku couldn't be sure as he hadn't hit a limit to any of those. For all he knew, it was all three. He wouldn't be able to tell. If the is one, then I'll get to it eventually. Years pass in relative normalcy. He had become the strongest person at his gym, being able to pick up every weight in the building with relative ease, though that's not saying much as all weights in the building add up to around 5 tons. His trainers have told him to go to better equipped gyms to keep improving, but he didn't want to as it was too far away from home, and besides he's been coming by to encourage and help the newer members train. His time there had been quite fruitful. Potency increase, plus photographic reflexes. Potency increase, spatial awareness potency increase, plus immense muscle density potency increase, plus immense muscle growth potency increase, plus muscle decay immunity potency increase, plus immense bone density potency increase, plus immense flexibility potency increase, plus immense stamina efficiency potency increase, plus immense stamina regeneration. Some of the upperclassmen have decided to test their mettle against the immovable wall of Aldera, as the school calls him. Izuku knew he was being followed, so he led them to a secluded area under a bridge. He stopped as he watched the group slowly and wearily surround him to prevent his escape. They stood just out of arm's reach, fully focused on their target, their white whale. Wow, quite the entourage you've gathered for little ol' me. Before we begin, if anyone was forced into this, get out of here. A few scared-looking ones in the back turned tail and ran. This was not the first time they had attempted a group assault, though there are some people from other schools in the group this time. Izuku looked around with an almost bored look, with his arms outstretched. Alright, everyone knows the rules, you all get a free hit in. Come on. Without a word they rushed in. We've done this many times now, though they've started incorporate raid boss tactics. At least they're improving. Even with my adaptation and training, my physics seems to grow at a normal rate for a child, so I'm small enough that only 3 people can engage close range. Their plan was good. But not good enough. After a few minutes it was over as they lay there with bruised bodies and dirted clothes. They don't give me challenge me anymore. They don't even increase the potency of my adaptations. Bakugo had joined in on a few of these brawls in the beginning, both with and against me. He quickly stopped joining because he and I, quote, don't need those extras to kill you bait. I let him tire himself out. He's never truly been able to hurt me after the first time in Aldra Elementary, though the adaptations I got from him were becoming very potent. Thought their names have yet to change like the others. School for Izuku had been fine. Always the top of the school academically, though never paying too much attention in class, which infuriate the teachers to no end, but they can do nothing. Bakugo, as always, wanted to throw down after result day. Other than that, life was normal until one day something peculiar happened. Something he never thought possible. One night he had a vivid dream of a white-haired man with red eyes in a suit standing with him in a void. Kurogiri, are you prepared? Yes. A dark purple portal opens up as the white-haired man walks through to a child's bedroom. He reaches out his hand and places it on the child's head. He then found himself in a dark void around him, the representations of the quirks he holds as orbs. He then looks toward the child, which was floating serenely. As he gets closer to him, a few of the orbs around him suddenly rushed to the boy and began orbiting around him. He ignored this, believing it was of no consequence. When he got close enough to touch the boy, he saw his own quirk, all for one, beginning to phase out of his hand and into the boy. He tries to pull his hand back, but that slowly rips the quirk in two. This causes immense pain to him, but he keeps pulling, not wanting to lose more than he has. Kurogiri, evac, a dark purple portal appears under All for One's body, teleporting him back to base. He sees his separated quirk go into the boy, along with many of his quirks not coming with him. As he landed, he opens his eyes with a gasp. Struggling, he speaks. Call the doctor. The doctor appears after a few minutes, and seeing the state of his 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧, he brings him to the lab. He is placed into bed as devices are hooked up to him to monitor his condition. Bring me the backups. Kurogiri portals in a lump of flesh, and All for One places his hand on it to recover the quirks he lost. He tries and he tries again. His heart drops. He looks into himself to assess the damage. The orb which represents his quirk was cracked and smaller, a lot smaller. It looked to be about 1/5 the size it once was. He looks over to the other orbs. There were only 20 left, thankfully nothing too important, not including some of the more powerful quirks, and the quirks of the previous users are gone. He did know the true effects of the separation until he can use the other quirks safely. A shame, but nothing he can't live without. 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧, did you retrieve your quirks? No, doctor, that quirk is a different beast. Now with most of All for One taken by it, there's no telling what it would allow that boy to do. He must be brought to our side. The next morning, Izuku wakes up tired and with a pounding headache, which quickly clears within the next few seconds. He opens his eyes to see multiple pop-ups. Quirk removal prevention protocol activated. Disarming intruder 90%. Incomplete storage. Complete integration error. Partial integration success. Quirk storage unlock. So that wasn't just a dream. He looks over in the corner of his vision and sees an icon of the letter Q above the envelope. He focuses. Danger sense, impact, recoil, float, kinetic booster, ultra strength, enhancer, dual mental processing, lie detector, quirk, sight, regeneration, all RO%. Who wanted to steal my quirk? Is that even possible? Then why would a protocol activate? Are there more protocols? Do they only activate when my quirk is at risk? Are these the quirks that they have stolen before they tried to take mine? Questions upon questions piled in his head. trying to figure out this new facet of his quirk. Unconsciously, he begins floating off his bed. Izuku, breakfast is red. How are you flying? Brought out of his crisis, he fall back into bed. They are both silent for a second. He looks up at Inko. Someone might have broken in last night. Next time, Chapter 5. Prelude. Author's note: hey, I've got a fanfic idea as I was writing Chapter 6. Izuku is in a coma he was put in from protecting someone from Bakugo. He wakes up in ancient Sparta as Kratos. After his adventure, Kratos passes and Izuku wakes up from the coma with the weapons at the end of the recent DLC Valhalla. This was inspired by a AO3 FIC with the same premise but with sci-fi knowledge. I forget the name, but transhumanism was one of the tags. Thus, I will be finishing this FIC before writing that one. And oh, before I forget, thank you to KillerCam360, Asher175, Galaxy's Blacks, and Alexander Kuxborski for voting and adding this story to your reading list. I appreciate the support. Inko and Izuku are outside of their apartment as the police have cordoned it off to gather evidence. A police officer is taking their statement. What did the intruder look like? He had white short hair, red eyes, and he was wearing a suit. Their eyes widen and they spoke into their radio. Code 921921. Miss Midoriya, can you two please come down to the station? You are not being arrested. Truth, so that's how lie detector works. The Midoriyas get into the police car. On the way, Izuku decides to check on his adaptations. Unlimited quirk storage, adapted quirk factor mimicry, adapted highly resilient cells, adapted. I guess bodies don't change to accommodate foreign quirks. Izuku is in an interview room with a giant two-way mirror on the wall. In front of his sat a detective. With a notepad. Nice to meet you, Midoriya. My name is Naomasa Tsukachi. My quirk is lie detection. Can you please tell me what exactly happened last night? Izuku. Active TED quirk site. When he heard what his quirk was, his eyes shimmer slightly, which the detective noticed but ignored. His quirk was navy blue and feels similar to the one he has, though it was much better. He looked over to the mirror and saw his own quirk. It looked like a golden silhouette with multicolored dots on his chest. Around his head were white orbs which were slowly orbiting. Some were almost disappearing and a few were a few centimeters away from his head. Behind the mirror he saw his mother, a smaller person, smaller than him, and a large muscular person whose quirk was most interesting. His quirk was like his own, a golden silhouette, though it seemed to be pushing against the skin of the person. They had 6 orbs flowing around his body. He looks back at the detective. I was sleeping when I appeared in a void floating. The intruder was standing a few feet away from me with floating orbs around him. Some of the orbs flew towards me and began orbiting around my body. As the man got closer, he tried to place his hand on me, but emerging from it was a dark red and black orb. He tried to pull away, but the orb resisted. He pulled until he ripped it apart and I fell unconscious. The detective is silent for a moment, processing the information. Did they do anything to you? Izuku pauses before he answers and looks over to the mirror. The 2 people with my mom, can they be trusted? The detective was shocked by this. I trust them with my life. Truth, could you call them in? The detective agrees and leaves to get them as Izuku watches through the walls following their quirks. After a minute, the detective returns. All Might. Izuku was excited to finally meet All Might, though he collects himself as he realized how serious this was with All Might here. I'll assume you know who our number 1 is. The other one is Dash. Am I a dog, a mouse, or a bear? No, I'm Nizu, principal of UA. Tsukachi reaches his hand out. Izuku shakes it. Heightened brain nerve density adapted. I'll repeat the question again. Did the intruder do anything to you? Izuku looks over to his mom. Inko's eyes widen in realization and acceptance. Before I need to explain my quirk, it's called reactive mutation. It changes my body to be less affected by all harm and it comes with a healing factor. Dash. Midoriya, your quirk is great, perfect for a hero, but what does this have to do with what happened? The detective asked. My quirk is a lot more than just defense. It gave me a UI with an envelope icon in the corner of my vision. Focusing on it causes a screen to pop up, contain adaptations, but only those which I have gained by touching others. The 3 were surprised by this. Nizu speaks up. Did you get any from me? Heightened brain nerve density is what I got from you, sir. Nizu sits back thinking deeply. Izuku continued. Which brings me to this morning, a series of pop-ups appeared in my vision. The first reads quirk removal prevention protocol activated. A wave of dread washes over the three that had confirmed that all for one had been making moves. It was followed by disarming, which stopped at 90%, then storage, which was complete, integration, which failed, and it tried again with partial integration, which succeeded, and one final pop-up which stated quirk storage unlocked. All for one had made a mistake, a massive miscalculation, one he could never see coming. Another quirk which was immune to it and a threat to all for one. Quirk storage. Did you get quirks from him? Nizu asked. I believe I did. Let me write it down for you. Quirk danger, sense impact, recoil, flow kinetic booster, ultra strength, enhancer, dual mental processing, lie detector, quirk sight regeneration, all RO%. I assume the last one is from the intruder, as I saw him rip his quirk apart. This was a revelation. Not only did he fail in taking the quirk, he was more than likely greatly weakened by the encounter. One of the quirks of the previous users were even in his possession. Do you know who broke into my room last night? You guys have been making faces knowing that my quirk was not taken. Yes, we do, young Midoriya. The man who had tried to take your quirk is called All for One, same as his quirk. His true name has been lost to time. He has been around since the dawn of quirk using an unknown longevity quirk. He has ruled over the criminal underworld since he came into power all those years ago. Him trying to take your quirk means he's prepares even now for our encounter. Izuku almost didn't want to believe it, but the proof was right there in front of him as a list of quirks of people he did not know. Mrs. Midoriya, I believe it would be best if you both be moved into UA for the foreseeable future. How would Izuku go to school? Are heroes going to see him? That would be inefficient as it wastes manpower, and I believe he would soar further under my personal tutelage. A sudden shudder runs through the staff at the prestigious academy. Oh no, he's found a successor. Inko ponders the decision but decides agree for Izuku's safety. All right, both of you can rest in the employee lounge while I get things ready. The Midoriya stand up and were being led out by the detective. All Might reaches out his hand to Izuku's shoulder, desiring to reassure him that the villain will be brought to justice. As his hand contacts Izuku, the both of them fall unconscious. All Might was caught by the detective while Izuku by his mother, with All Might still holding on tight. Nizu instructs them to carefully maneuver them to the lounge without separating them, as Izuku's quirk is not fully known. Izuku awakens in the void once more, this time more lucid. He looks around and finds All Might. Is this what All for One saw? All Might was shocked to see the orbs mentioned by Izuku floating around him. Behind All Might was a woman Izuku had never met before. Toshinori. Next time, Chapter 6, Reunion. Thanks to 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧, Joker J75, and Alexander Kuxborski for voting on the last chapter. All Might quickly turned around. Sir. The woman pulls him into a hug which is reciprocated. I'm sorry I couldn't stay for a while longer to full train you. I'm proud of the man you've become. This bring him to tears. They hug for a while as the woman looks up towards Izuku. I guess you're ninth. A confused look comes across his face, followed by hers. She stopped hugging All Might as Izuku asked, Who are you? What is this place? I'm Nana Shimura, the 7th holder of One for All, and this place is the 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧 realm. Truth, One for All. Are you related to All for One? Toshinori really didn't tell you anything about One for All before giving it to you. How are you here if not by receiving the One for All? I was here before when All for One tried to take my quirk. He failed, and for his troubles my quirk decided to deal with him by removing some of his quirks and taking most of his own. I don't believe that this is your vestige realm of One for All, it's mine. The orbs around Izuku fanned out and began forming into humanoid shapes. Many of them adults with some children, but the most important was a clone of Nana to his right. 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧. Nana gets closer to the clone. As they are about to touch, the clone returns to its previous form and flies directly into Izuku. Quirk assimilation, float and GT, flight. The pop-up appears above and in front of Izuku. Nana and All Might stare at the text in disbelief, debating with themselves what the change of name meant. Izuku ponders for a moment on the same issue but decided to deal with it once he left whatever this please was. 𝙎𝗪𝙢𝙢𝙧𝗮, do you recognize anyone else here? She looked at the others she had not paid attention to. All other one for all users were there excluding the first and eighth. Out of all of them fourth was most recognizable. Fourth. A vestige of a man with a black line across his face looks over at her. How do you know of that? He was weary of here the only thing that was the fourth of was his responsibility, his promise to keep the key to victory safe. I'm Nana 𝙎𝗪𝙢𝙢𝙧𝗮, the seventh holder of One for All. I had met a version of you stored in One for All as I was. He sighs in relief knowing not all is lost. Has that version of me told you of the consequences of holding One for All? Yes, All Might interjects. What do you mean consequences? What would happen if I had passed it on? When I held the quirk I tried to hold onto it and train until I could face All for One, but after years of this my body began deteriorating quickly. Thankfully I was able to find a successor. I died at the age of 40 with my body crumbling as All for One found me. Then why hasn't my body been deteriorating? I'm already past 40-inch me and the other users have discussed this. There is a difference between you and fourth. You were quirkless. Think of quirks like water and a body a cup. When someone has a quirk their cup is filled to the brim and if another quirk is added to it the cup overflows and cracks as the spilled contents try to return into it. Dread falls on to All Might knowing he would have gave his successor an early grave. Which means I must find a quirkless successor. Or someone with a quirk which counteracts the effects. What do you mean young 𝙎𝗪𝙢𝙢𝙧𝗮? The three look over to Izuku desiring an explanation. As you know my quirk allows me to adapt and recover from any harm that comes to me. If I were to receive One for All I would become immune to its effects over time. Fourth, how long were you in possession of the quirk? Around 18 years. And since All Might has held on to it for so long anyone else who would hold the quirk would live for another 6 years. A silence falls upon the group as All Might truly comprehends the gravity of what curse he would have brought to his successor. Izuku then realized something. Wait, if all quirks have vestiges then where is All for One's you? The group looks over to the vestige of All for One and the holders ready themselves to defend Izuku, but as it took a step. Malicious will detected removing what? No. Complete. The group looked on shock as the vestige of All for One began to quickly dissipates in screams of anger and fear, and turns into a red orb surrounded by lightning. All Might, I think we should get back. They might be getting worried that we were gone for a while. Yes, young 𝙎𝗪𝙢𝙢𝙧𝗮, there is much we must discuss with Nizu, 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏, and your mother, 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. An older-looking vestige piped up. They look over to him. Who are you? Seiko 𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏, I was killed by All for One after he took my quirk lie detector. You know of my descendant. What is their name? Naomasa 𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏. The vestige sighs in relief. My grandson. Thank God he's okay. The vestige returns to an orb and flies straight to Izuku. Quirk assimilation, lie detector and GT, fact or fiction appears once again. Okay, is there anyone else who is recognizable? They try to say anything to get a response from the rest of the vestiges to no avail. They return to orbs and orbit Izuku. Alright, I guess we're done here. Hopefully my being here has allowed you to speak to All Might privately. I hope so too. Izuku opens his eyes. He was laying on couch with Inko holding his hand and she seeing this pulls him into a hug. Izu, you okay? What did All Might do to you? He didn't do anything, his quirk is just weird. Izuku looks at an unconscious All Might. He should have woken up at the same time. This doesn't last long as All Might wakes up and slowly sits up with a somber look. We need to get to UA. Nizu immediately leads the 𝙎𝗪𝙢𝙢𝙧𝗮 and 𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 to a car, and the set off to the most prestigious hero school in the country. Next time Chapter 7. Machinations thanks Crosscroft 552, Joker J75, and Alexander Kuxborski for voting on the last chapter. The support is appreciated. They arrive at the entrance to UA and standing at the gate was a tall bespectacled man with green hair with 3 streaks of yellow in a gray suit, and with him was a short old man in a yellow and white hero costume and a black domino mask. All Might shivers slightly at the sight of him. The car stops and All Might gets out to greet them. Mirai, Torino-sensei, why are you here? I ain't got a clue. This oracle barged in and told me to come with him and that it was important. Ficity, it works the same. There has to be something different. All Might, why are those two here? These are the Midoriyas. They had encountered. We need to get inside. Seeing the uncommonly serious face on All Might, Mirai stays silent. Nizu then leads the group to a secure meeting room. As they were walking, Izuku realized who the tall man was. He was Mirai Sasaki, or better known as Sir Night Eye, All Might's sidekick. In the meeting room they all sat down except All Might, and he begins. I think it's best we start from the beginning, Detective. Tsukachi recounted from the time he received the code for potential quirk theft. As the recounting went on, he was corroborated by All Might and Nizu. The Midoriyas were about to leave the room when All Might had tried to touch Midoriya's shoulder, after which they both passed out. Midoriya and All Might should continue as even Nizu, and I don't know what had happened. The two then told the group of their time in Izuku's quirk realm, as he called it. He was supported by All Might and the detective, who confirmed that his words were truth. The group were speechless, especially Tsukachi, as he has confirmation that his grandfather had died to protect them. Torino was emotional knowing Nana was still with them in spirit, and Mirai was contemplating Izuku's confusing yet powerful quirk. Mirai speaks first. What quirk and adaptations do you currently have? Can you list them out? Izuku was given access to the computer of the projector as he typed out the list. Quirks: Danger, Sense Impact, Recoil Flight, Kinetic Booster, Ultra Strength Enhancer, Dual Mental Processing Fact or Fiction, Quirk Sight, Regeneration, All RO% E Adaptations, Heightened Mental Acuity, Cell Longevity, Spatial Awareness, Kinetic Shock Resistance, Heightened Eardrum Durability, Heat Resistance, Photographic Reflexes, Immense Stamina Efficiency, Immense Bone Density, Immense Muscle Density, Immense Mental Processing, Mental Strain Resistance, Immense Muscle Growth Rate, Quirk Strain, Immunity, Muscle Decay, Immunity, Immense Flexibility, Immense Stamina Regeneration, Unlimited Quirk Storage, Quirk Factor, Mimicry, Highly Resilient Cells, Heightened Brain Nerve Density. The group looks at the projection in shock. From what they could see, this child had enough firepower to possibly take down All Might alone, and with how he gains more and stronger adaptations, he would be a perfect counter for any opponent. Nizu was most curious of the assimilated quirks, especially fact or fiction. Midoriya, All for One, has agents in the HPSC. Fact, I knew it. The others sit and contemplate the information as another statement is thrown out. All for One has been weakened by his encounter with Izuku. Midoriya. Fact. Tsukachi began writing these down in a notepad. For One has known of Izuku's quirk as soon as he received it. Fact. That's worrying. The MLA has been disbanded since the capture of Destro. Fiction. This continues for the next few hours as the heroes gained confirmation on some ambiguous outcomes of previous villain encounters and some of their suspicions. They had pinned All for One's location to the outskirts of Japan on the unpopulated Hashima Island. The accommodations for the Midoriyas were prepared during the meeting, and they were allowed to excuse themselves. The Midoriyas leave to rest while the heroes continue discussing the coming raid. That bastard may be weakened, but he could have an ace up his sleeve we can't predict. He won't get the chance to use it. The plan is to surround the island and capture any escaping goons we find, and All Might comes in once All for One is located by Midoriya. He uses his most powerful attack and incapacitate him. I'll see if the authorization to eliminate him is still in effect. All Might, I believe you should pass on One for All as a precaution. I would recommend the boy, but I don't know of his nature. He might be the best shot to eliminate All for One if it comes down to it. Toshinori, what did Nana say to you before you woke up? She said she felt the hold of One for All my body had was weakening, being drawn to young Midoriya and to trust in the will of One for All. We have a week until the raid. Get to know him and make your decision. The meeting ended and the heroes returned to their duties. At night, All Might lays in bed, hand on his stomach, mulling over the decision. Sir, what do I do? He falls asleep and finds himself in the vestige realm of One for All. It looked like a concrete room with thrones and the vestiges of the past sighting upon them, though two of them seems to do it begrudgingly, not looking at him in the eye. Toshinori, you're here. Nana gets up to hug him. Hello 8th, I am Yoichi Shigaraki, the first holder of One for All. You have a big decision to make, to choose the 9th holder. All Might looks at the scrawny long white-haired man. Yes, I don't know what to choose, to give One for All as precaution or to hold on in belief that all will go as planned. Can you guarantee that you will survive your fight with All for One? All Might thinks for a moment. No. Then the choice is obvious. Observe Midoriya and determine if he is the right choice. If not him, then you must find another quirkless to take his place. All Might nods. Now our fated encounter with my brother draws near. The meeting of that boy's quirk with One for All has brought it to singularity. We have all agreed to allow you to use our quirks. All Might's eyes widen at the implications of this. He would be able to use all the quirks of the previous users. He bows in gratitude. Thank you. Tomorrow, when you meet with the boy, enter his quirk realm, we will teach you there. Next time Chapter 8. Choices thanks to Crosscraft 552, Joker J75, and Asher 175 for voting on the last chapter. The support is appreciated. All Might woke up expecting to feel different, but he felt just the same as yesterday. He got up, put on his super suit to do some morning patrols. He encounters some muggings, though he has been a nagging feeling that there's more going on. He jumps past an alley and sees a vigilante running away from a black bluish-skinned villain with an exposed brain. Have no fear. The vigilante looked up to see the number 1 land between him and that villain. For I am here. He punches the villain in the face with enough force to slam it into the back of the building. Who is this villain? He turns around to question the vigilante, but they were already gone. A sudden spike of anxiety causes All Might to lean his head to the side and sees a fist flying over his shoulder. He grabs the arm and with his other hand punched the villain in the chest, though in his surprise he had used too much power. The villain was embedded in a wall, blood leaking out of their mouth and a stump where their arm should be. An arm that All Might was still holding. He looked at it in shock and fear as he dropped it. He quickly got closer to the villain to stop the bleeding and save them, but by the time he got there he saw that the villain had regrown their arm and was sitting there breathing silently. Hey, are you all right? With a hand on their shoulder he tried to get their attention, but they were unresponsive. Tashinori, they have multiple quirks. Nana's voice appears in his head. All Might, now knowing this was doing, picked up the body and made his way to Yue. Izuku woke up to his new room in Yue. It hadn't hit him until now, but he was in his dream school, though, for both him and his mother's protection. He gets up and goes to kitchen to fix up some breakfast for himself and his mom. He had been doing this since he had been waking up early and Mom taught him how to. He then went out for a run. He used to do this to train the stamina adaptations, but now it's been a habit and it helps him clear his mind. When he got back he found Nizu and an older woman he recognized as the hero recovery girl. They seemed to have been talking to his mom. Midoriya, please have a seat, we've been discussing your schedule while you're here at Yue. Izuku sits down next to Mom, eager to know what he will be doing during his time here. Alright, we have agreed to a 2-hour lesson with me from Monday to Friday in the morning at 9 a.m. and at 1 p.m. we'll be quirk training for 3 hours. Though if you want to keep using the gym after hours, then you just need to ask. Any time besides those is free time to whatever you want, though leaving is still a safety risk. All facilities of UA are free to access, including the library. Any questions? No sir, I'll be in your care. Excellent. Well Midoriya, you are now officially enrolled in UA as my personal student. This is Recovery Girl, our school nurse, and she would like to run some tests on quirk, seeing how it has changed your body. Later they were conducting a CT scan on Izuku as his BLD was unable to be tested. It dried out too quickly and needles couldn't pierce his skin after the first few times. Recovery Girl was looking at the scans as they came in. She looked at them in confusion, as while bones were shown, there were no organs, not even a brain. In its place was pure muscle. When she brought the results to the Midoriyas, they were dumbfounded. If I don't have organs, then how do I still breathe and eat? Breathing, I believe, is possible due to habit, and that is how your body intakes oxygen, though your body should be able to adapt to absorb oxygen through your skin if needed. Eating is a bit trickier as we need scans. There are two possibilities that are most probable: either any food or liquid you ingest is immediately metabolized at the back of your throat, or a temporary stomach is made to process nutrients ingest. Then how would I be able to think? Is my body full of scattered clusters of brain cells? Possibly it could also mean each cell can be considered a single organism. As she finishes her reply, a knock is heard from the door. Come in. All Might walks in with a dark humanoid in his arms. All for one, this gets Recovery Girl moving and she begins examining the unresponsive person. You should leave, this will take a while. The three leave. All Might asks Izuku to come with him to the gym, which Izuku agrees to but need to go get his gym clothes. At the gym, All Might explains. Young Midoriya, when you were in contact with One for All, you had brought it to singularity. The previous holder had spoke to me last night and have allowed to access to their quirks for the coming battle. Okay, but why am I here? They recommend we use your quirk realm to help teach me how to use their quirks, and as you currently hold the original quirks, it might help you use them. Izuku nods in agreement as the both of them sit with their back to the wall. Izuku sets a timer on his phone to track the time passed in his quirk realm. They both pass out and wake up in a familiar void. Good, we can finally begin. Next time, Chapter 9, Training from Beyond. Thanks to Alexander Kuxborski, Crosscra 552, Joker J75, and Asher 175 for voting on the last chapter. The support is appreciated. I'm Kudo. My quirk is Gear Shift. It allows me to change the speed of small object, and with the help from One for All it should have increased the size and speed. Izuku was thinking about the quirk and the inadequacy of the void for training, as the quirk requires small objects to work. As he was having that thought, a burst of energy came from him which transformed the void into the gym he used to train at. It was quaint, but it had everything they needed. The second user whistled as he looked around at Jim, while All Might had his eyes wide and mouth agape. Well, that's convenient. Let us begin. For the next 2 hours, All Might trained with the quirk launching small steel ball at hypersonic speeds like a railgun. They eventually figured out it could be used on their own body, increasing speed for a limited time. All Might was doing a target range when Gear Shift Integrated appeared on a TV screen with a ding. Kudo looks at the screen in curiosity, having heard from Nana of the boy's quirk. An orb flies out of Izuku and transforms into Kudo. The clone was confused to see a clone himself with two strangers. Readying himself, he fires small knives at the trio. All Might goes to stop the knives, but as the knives got close to him, they disappear into particles. Seeing this, clone Kudo backs off and asks, "Who are you people? Why does one of you look like me?" "I look like you because I am you, at least a version of you within One for All. This big guy is All Might, the 8th holder, and the child is Izuku Midoriya, whose quirk realm you are in currently." Kudo pauses, taking in the information. "Then why am I here? Last I saw was All for One's hand on my head as he took my quirk after the knife that would have hit him failed." 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟 Kudo was saddened to know exactly how his plan to end All for One's reign had failed. Izuku speaks up. "You are here because All for One made a mistake in trying to take my quirk. When he tried, he was brought to this place. He held on to Gear Shift for many decades and you escaped his grasp. Then All for One is without his quirks. Why are we standing here and not going after him?" All Might answers. "Because times have changed. It has been a few decades since you've passed. One for All has been passed to me as its 8th holder. We train to bring him to justice. We have his location with the help of a quirk young Midoriya took from him. We plan raid his base in a week." Quirk Kudo pauses to think of what to say. "You make sure you kill him. Do not let his body out of sight. One for All's purpose has always been the defeat of that monster. Hopefully the 9th will not have to clean up after our mess." With that, he returns to an orb and flies back to Izuku, and the TV lights up once more. Quirk assimilated, Gear Shift and GT, velocity manipulation. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟 Kudo looks at the TV in amusement. One hell of a quirk. Later, All Might and Izuku open their eyes up in the gym. Izuku stops the timer on his phone. It stopped at 15 minutes while they spent around 2 hours in his quirk realm. The time dilation was 1:8 1 minute in the real world to 8 in his quirk. Izuku then picked up a rock and tried to activate his new quirk. The rock launched out of his hand and smashed into bits when it hit a wall. While that was good, it wasn't as good as within the quirk realm. Izuku tells All Might of his findings and they decided to train in the gym to gain the muscle memory. This continued for the rest of the week, every day training a new quirk. And with the time dilation they have spent around 11 days in the quirk realm training with the different quirks. Speaking of which, quirk assimilated, FA gene and GT, kinetic stockpile quirk assimilated, danger sense and GT, preemptive warning quirk assimilated, black whip and GT, energy constructs quirk assimilated, smokescreen and GT, smoke elemental. On the day before the raid, All Might was conferring with his mentor Gran Torino. So Toshinori, have you decided? With a sigh he answered, yes I have. I will be giving it to young Midoriya. He may already have an amazing and powerful quirk, but he has the will and drive to be the greatest hero, even better than me. Good, is he ready to receive the quirk? More than ready. Then get to it. Hopefully history doesn't repeat itself. So please don't raise any flags. Later, All Might meets with Midoriya in the gym and they appear in Izuku's quirk realm for one final session before the raid. Young Midoriya, I would like to have a spar with you. Izuku was surprised. They had been training together for a while, but he didn't expect a spar. If anything, he expected him to spar with Shimura, but they just talked privately for a few hours while he was taking a nap. Are you sure? I haven't fought of your caliber before. Worry not, I'll go light until I see that you can take more. The training room changes into an empty grass field with light winds blowing. The two of them get into position. They stand there neither moving. All Might looking for tells and Izuku waiting for him to make the first move. All Might lunges forward, appearing immediately in front of Izuku with a right hook locked and loaded. Izuku crosses his arms to block the blow. Izuku is launched 10 steps back, but before he can retaliate, another hook is coming from the left side. Blocking it again sent him 8 steps back. This continued until Izuku could tank the hit without moving. Izuku readies a punch fueled by kinetic energy manipulation, kinetic booster, kinetic enhancer and ultra strength enhancer. It grasses All Might, but it was able to launch him a few meters back. It also gouges a large chunk of the land, which is quickly restored. The fight is taken to the air. The two of them exchange blows faster and faster with more and more power, until Izuku using smoke elemental to blind All Might and lands a hit square in his chest, which launches him into a coughing fit. Izuku stops and lands to check on him. He was fine, just got the air punched out of his lungs. Young Midoriya, you are ready. For what? To receive one for all, Izuku would say. He was surprised by this, but he had a sneaking suspicion that as All Might has been spending a lot of time with him during the week, but he chalked it up to preparing for the coming raid. Are you sure that I'm the one worthy to hold such power? I am, and with that spar I can fight without worry, knowing that the future is sound for a peaceful world. They both leave the quirk realm. Izuku looked around with quirk sight to make sure that no one was eavesdropping on them. The coast was clear and he turned to All Might. Young Midoriya, I deem you worthy to inherit my quirk. Izuku waits in anticipation of how the quirk transfer of one for all works. All Might pulls a strand of hair off his head. Eat this. Next time, Chapter 10, Raid. Thanks to Adam Clyde Oi, Joker J75, and mystery person Wattpad won't show me who for voting. Adam, I'm thrilled knowing you've been enjoying this. All Might was flying above Hashima Island, which that man resides on, watching the operation to surround the island with scouting vessels to prevent escape. As they got into position, Izuku, who was next to him, was using quirk sight to try and find the exact location of All for One. He sees a small flickering red orb near the middle of the island. He tells All Might this and he flies further up in the sky to fly away, leaving behind a shock wave disperses some clouds which goes unnoticed by anyone below. All Might looks at the spot Izuku pointed out and, seeing the vessels now in position, begins the operation. All for One was laying on the medical bed resting after being examined by the doctor. He was seething as his plans to finally take back what was rightly his had to be delayed. Even one of the Nomu was taken. An alarm sounds through the facility. This surprised him and he quickly got up to meet the intruder. Before he can get near the door, a familiar face bursts through the it. All for One, you evil ends here. He is launched back by an air cannon from the villain. All Might, how nice of you to visit. I do wonder how you got my address, but no matter, you've brought me just what I wanted. All for One rushes to the hero with a speed quirk to punch him with a strength enhancer boosted by spring-like limbs. This blows a hole through the facility into the open air, and All for One flies above All Might, touting his superiority, but that doesn't last long as All Might launches himself at high speed using float and gear shift to punch All for One as he used some body enhancers and spear-like bones to hurt All Might on impact. He is then pushed back a few meters in the air, having not expected the power of the punch to break through his quirks. He turns and looks to the ground expecting to see All Might, but he is punched in the head, sending him hurtling into the ground. He gets up dazed and looks up to see All Might in the air just like her. Impossible! That infuriating smile plastered on his face. He flies back up to retaliate, which was dodged. This back and forth continues with the both of them hitting each other, Black Whip appearing to negate most of All for One's attacks. What's wrong, All for One? You'd usually be boasting how much more powerful you are. You know nothing of power. The fight got more intense, with All Might taking more hits than he did before, even with Black Whip help. Dark beams and lightning can be seen offshore pushing away clouds. They were at a standstill until All Might managed to land a hit with the power of gear shift and half of the collected power from Fa Gene, sending AFO into the ground into a crater. He bloodied struggles to get up as All Might slowly floats down with his cape billowing behind him. This is over, All for One. It's time to give up. You're right, I give. All Might got close to cuff him, but AFO's hand shifts into a blade and tries to stab All Might's heart, but he moved so it went into his stomach. His arm, now embedded in All Might, then shifts into a large barbed mass, and using mutilation to increase the damage and to make sure his organs were crushed. Before he could pull his arm out, it was cut off by Black Whip, which kept the arm in place to reduce bleeding. All Might collapsed onto the floor, shredded organs still inside him along with All for One's transformed arm. All for One lets out a guttural laugh. You imbecile. Why would you ever trust a word I say? You'll die just as your precious emperor did by my hand. He receives no reply as black tendrils emerge around the wound to cover it up, some of the arms still exposed. All Might is silent, his signature smile gone, replaced by an empty, expressionless face as he disappeared from sight. All for One was too stunned to move as All Might's hands were already around his head before he saw him. That blank face conveying nothing but All Might's focus on his task. He saw the face which would haunt for the rest of his days as an insurmountable pressure is felt as All Might's slowly hands closed around him. All for One struggled and clawed for freedom using every quirk in his arsenal, but to no avail as every attempt was foiled, restrained by black tendrils. Crack, squelch, the top of his head was crushed, the rest of his body fell to the floor limp as BLD poured into the dirt below. All Might collapses on his knees looking at this BLD-covered, brain matter splattered hand. Finally, he had avenged his MSTR. Gran Torino appeared at the scene. Seeing the body of All for One was a satisfying sight to behold, but there was no time to waste. BLD was leaking between the black tendrils as he picked up All Might to get him to safety. The cleanup of the island was a mess. Thankfully, the fight had happened on an island away from the prying eyes of the public. A fake story was drummed up to hide the destruction of the island, a fight between All Might and Toxic Chainsaw. All for One's body was collected and brought to a morgue at Jaku General Hospital to avoid public suspicion of the presented story. The Midoriyas were allowed to leave the school, though they still had to stay there as the underlings of All for One are still active. Meanwhile, under Jaku General Hospital was a lab with a stasis pod holding the body of All for One. The doctor was looking at it in sadness and anger. How had All Might found their base on that island? How was he able to overpower his great MSTR? Never mind, he can make him better, he just needs more material. If only he could use that boy's quirk, his MSTR would have been unstoppable. This thought causes an epiphany. Kurogyri, yes doctor, find Izuku Midoriya and bring him here in anti-quirk cuffs. He is needed to restore the health of our Estu. Kurogyri disappears into his portal, leaving the doctor alone once again in front of the pod. Next time, Chapter 11. Abduction. Thanks to Adam Clyde Oi, Zibbity, Hokarasum Feo, Crosschara 552, Joker J75, 13's Few and Lasagna for voting. You're all truly wonderful. See you guys next time. It's been a month since the big battle. All Might has been tirelessly hunting the remaining forces of All for One even with his limited time. The battle had done a number on him, as he could only go into his mucled form for about 22 hours, which may seem long, but it is decreasing by the day. When he is not in that form, he looks skinny, sickly, and occasionally spits blood if he stays muscled too long. They have yet to find more villains similar to the one he had captured that day. It was mindless husk due to the host body being forced to hold multiple quirks. Izuku was out, having dealt with another group of skirmisher on his way to the store to get some snacks. He kinda missed their little skirmishes even if they're boring. All Might had a press conference announcing his nearing retirement, which caused an uproar, but he calmed them down, saying he will still be on the job for the next decade to allow time for more heroes to take his place. My time may be drawing near, but I trust with my reminder of time more heroes will rise to surpass me and go even further beyond. Plus Ultra. The speech had a great impact on hero society. Many heroes who heard this felt a fire in their hearts to do better, to carve their name into the tapestry of history. Izuku was walking past an alleyway when preemptive warning activated, knowing something was going to fly towards his neck. He dodged, but a portal appeared behind him as a metal shackle closes around his neck. He reached up to remove it, but he passes out. Before he can hit the ground, a portal opens and he falls into it. This incident does not go unnoticed, as a few passers-by began to call for heroes and police for aid. They arrived and began taking witness reports while the scene was surveyed. They find nothing but a dropped bag of snacks. The appearance of the child was sent to heroes to embiggen the search area. Inko was at home doing some chores. Izuku should be back by now. Did the other kids fight him again? She heard a knock on the door. She opened the door to Nizu with a serious face. Inko, Izuku has been taken. Inko, in shock, goes to sit down on the couch. Who? We believe it was All for One's closest aides, as they would have been the only ones to know of his condition. A river of tears began to flow out of Inko as Nizu tried to comfort her. Don't worry, All Might's already out searching along with many other heroes. We'll find him soon, safe and sound. Underground, the doctor began trying to study the boy's DNA, but progress is slow as every sample decays too quickly to get anything substantial. He tried to study his skin cells, but the results were the same. He was running out of time, as he knew that All Might had begun his search, and the boy's quirk was adapting by the second to completely invalidate the shackle's hold. In a last-ditch effort, he tried to pump the boy's blood into his master's pod. The blood saturated the nutritional liquid in the pod, making it opaque. After a few seconds, the liquid drained from the pod, revealing a fully healed but unconscious All for One. His master's body was taken to an examination table as the doctor marveled at the sight of the healed leech, but the doctor had forgotten one small detail: the boy's quirk was ravenous. As All for One's body began seizing and shacking, knocking over the table, the top of his head and his right arm began to slowly and painfully rip itself off. Muffled sounds of pain came from his mouth. The tendrils still stuck to his body, snapping as it pulled away. The doctor looked in disgust as the final tendril snapped and the chunks of flesh splat on the cold ground. The wound on All for One's head and arms slowly closed and healed over, but blood was slowly pooling in his mouth. The doctor quickly ordered the Nomu to place him back into the pod. The doctor turned back to look at the lumps of flesh. It had merged and had grown considerably larger. He watched in fascination as it writhes, morphs, and grows into a perfect copy of Nana Shimura in her hero costume. She looked around in surprise at her hand, then at the doctor, and seeing Izuku passed out, punched the doctor, launching him into the wall. As he laid there, a black sludge poured out of his mouth as the was teleported away along with the body of All for One. She looked around again and sees many variants of the monster All Might had fought. Nana punched with all the power she had and blew a hole right to the sky. The opening had a few trees surrounding it. In Nana's vision was the icons Izuku had described. Ignoring that, she picks up Izuku and flies out of the hole she made to an amber sky. It was sunset. She admired the sky she thought she would never see again. She then saw that law informant beginning to converge on their location. A shockwave was heard as All Might was floating next to her, a surprised look on his face. "Mr. How are you here? It seems there's still much to learn about Ninth's quirk. We need to get to UA to get this shackle off him." With a nod, they both blast off in the direction of UA, to the awe of the people below who record the whole encounter. This video caused a new wave of speculation of All Might's quirk and drew the ire of a certain bomber boy. All Might and Nana land on UA grounds where Nizu and Powerloader were standing by. They took him to the nurse's office and it took 10 minutes to safely open the shackle. The shackle had many mechanisms to ensure sedation and a laser to which they assumed to decapitate the victim. Nizu allowed Powerloader to study the device. As soon as the device was open, Izuku woke up and looked around wearily. What happened? Inko lunged to hug Izuku with incoherent babbling of worries and fears. He consoles her while patting her back. He looks over to see All Might and Nana looking at him in relief. Shimura, how are you here? I thought you could only exist in the Vestige realm. You were captured by a doctor who worked for All for One. He tried to use your BLD to try and revive the corpse of All for One. Your quirk is more than we've already know. All Might and Nizu's eyes widen. They believed that his body was properly disposed of. Now that the doctor had escaped, who knows what could be done with it? Nana touches Izuku's shoulder and her body disassembles into red tendrils with many small green eyes and is reabsorbed into his body. Izuku looks at his arms as he turns them into a writhing mass of red tendrils. He turns back immediately, realizing that he hadn't been paying attention to the physical aspects of his quirk. The room was silent, having witnessed the transformation. It was grotesque. The shiver-inducing sound of melding flesh and cracking bones terrified and disgusted them. Meanwhile, Izuku was checking on the new pop-ups in his vision. Quirk disabled, diagnosing quirk running at 5%, quirk function return S2 hours, intruder connection reestablished, quirk running at 73%, resuming, intruder disarmed, disconnecting, complete, malicious will deleted, deleting, complete, quirk synergy, All for One, One for All, quirk site, infrared and GT. Quirk progenitor Izuku suddenly was inundated with information of the quirks around him. The flood slowly stops as the information is catalogued and stored away. Izuku opens the quirk tab to check. Quirks preemptive warning, impact, recoil flight, kinetic booster, ultra strength enhancer, dual mental processing, fact or fiction, quirk site, regeneration, All for One, velocity manipulation, kinetic stockpile, energy constructs, smoke, elemental, One for All, spear-like bones, spring-like limbs, warping, air cannon, rivet, stab multiplier, infrared life force, radio waves, hard flame, fan, impure beam, dark ball, telekinesis, ventriloquist, sickle, dark cowl, sword, barbed limbs, super regeneration, mutilation, quirk. Progenitor Izuku was slightly disappointed by the amount of quirks. He expected more from the demon lord of the underworld, knowing he was around since the dawn of quirks. He then relayed the list to the others in the room. Upon hearing it, they knew there was much to do. Next time, Chapter 12. Entrance exam. Thanks to Joker J75, Alexander Kuxborski, Chwebster, Asher 175 and Adam Klydoy for voting. It's been years since that day in the nurse's office. Izuku had spent many of them training the quirks he gained from All for One, though quirk progenitor has been a bit of a mystery along with quirk synergy. The quirk gave him information on the quirks around him and puts pressure on other people. They felt as if their quirk was trying to leave them. Other than that, quirk synergy has yet to trigger again. Which brings him to today after another fight with some goons. The skirmishes have died down, but the fights have been getting intense. Well, maybe for them Izuku had to hold back a lot as to not injure them too badly, though he commends them for at least trying. His reputation as the unbeatable has pushed many away from him. Though Bakugo still comes after him from time to time. Tell me what happened, nerd. He's been asking that since the kidnapping. Izuku couldn't really tell him anything, so he stays silent. His explosions may have gotten a lot more powerful, but he hasn't really improved his finesse as much. Since the rescue was recorded, a lot of speculation about the true capability of All Might's quirk had spread around. Everyone was talking about it, so All Might decided to address the rumors as soon as possible, which just so happened to be a talk show. All Might sits to the right of the host after being brought on with the applause of the audience. All Might, it is wonderful to have you here. It's my pleasure. Now I believe that I speak for the audience here. After seeing you flying, the true nature of your quirk has been brought into question. Are you willing to at least reveal some parts about it? Well, I can't reveal much, but what I can say is to expect many more surprises in the future. After the interview, All Might was seen flying around the whole of Japan during his patrols. He has shown off some of the other quirks, mainly FA gene and gear shift, as the public noticed that he was moving a lot faster than usual. They believe that All Might's quirk had gone through an awakening, and speculation for which battle it occurred in began. Anyways, Izuku now stands in front of the gates of UA, though he's been through it many times before, but this time as an actual student of UA, not just Nizu's. Now you may be wondering why he's even here to take the entrance exam. He's doing it as formality and to prove that he got in fairly. He may have gotten training early, but he made a deal to only use the physical aspects of his quirk, meaning no quirks and self-defense only. Standing there, he feels Bakugo walking behind him and try to shoulder check him. It doesn't work, as he almost falls over before his is caught by Izuku by the arm. "I don't need you help, you BSTRD. Nice to see you too, Kaken. Don't call me that, you demon nerd. Good luck in the exam." He scoffs with his usual angry look as he continues into the school. Izuku walks after him, kicking a brick which suddenly popped up. Under it was a piston which retracted. Izuku knew Nizu was messing with him, and he dreaded what was to come in the written exam. He was right. His exam was 10 times the thickness of the other examens, filled with a bunch of esoteric questions and 1,000-word essays. He barely got it done in time. He really wished he had a dexterity adaptation to write faster, but what's done is done. He now sits in an auditorium, and who would be seated right next to him but Katsuki Bakugo. Izuku reads through the pamphlet provided to each candidate. The spotlights suddenly come on, pointed at the stage, revealing present Mike. "Good morning, everybody. Can I get a hey?" With a flourish, he put his hand to his ear to listen better. Izuku, feeling the awkwardness of the crowd, replies with a fist in the air. "Hey." It was loud enough to shake the building. "Thank you, listener. I seems we've got the second coming of the voice hero. Now on to our feature presentation." He began to explain the exam. Students were sorted into groups and taken to the exam site. The objective: destroy as many robots as you can. There were 1, 2, and 3 pointers, and as Mike was segueing, he was interrupted by a blue-haired, bespectacled candidate. "Sir, I believe there's a mistake in the pamphlet. It states we will be facing 4 types of robots, but you've only mentioned 3. If this is a mistake on your Part 1, question your qualifications. And you back there with the green hair, if you're not going to take this seriously, then I think you are not worthy of being a hero." Izuku does not dignify him with a response, instead looking at him with a look of, "Are you seriously saying that?" Not only did he interrupt present Mike, he insulted him, and he called out a student he had no problem with responding to his call and response. "Please sit, examinee. I was just getting to that, and don't jump to conclusions. A hero's greatest tool is their vigilance. The 4th robot you will encounter is the 0-pointer, which is more of an obstacle than an enemy, and that's it. I wish you all good luck. Plus Ultra." Izuku got onto his bus, and thankfully Bakugo was not in his group. The mood in the bus was tense. Some were worried, and others seemed overconfident in their skills, or rather quirks. That blue-haired guy was here, as well as a weirdly flamboyant Frenchebo, flaunting how shiny and dazzling he is. This was going to be a long bus ride. He had a few glances thrown at him, but they seemed to have dismissed him as a non-threat, which confused him. They arrive at the test site and were led out of the bus by present Mike to the main entrance to the site. They stood around waiting for the green light to begin. Many examinees have formed into groups to better combat the robots. Izuku noticed a girl with brown hair, seemingly very nervous. He tried to encourage her, but he felt someone try to grab him. He catches the hand before it makes contact and turns around. They wince as Izuku grabbed them pretty hard. "Biometal generation adapted? What's your issue, man? Don't just grab somebody by surprise. You don't know how they'll react. You were trying to distract that girl. Did you not listen to present Mike when he said to not jump to conclusions, or is he not qualified enough to teach you?" This gets him to shut up as a stuttering noise came out of his mouth, trying to rebuke him. "Begin." Izuku rushes into the barely opened gate, blowing a few students back. Many of the students had a sneer on their faces, believing he had started early, but they were proven wrong by present Mike. "What are you waiting for? There are no countdowns in real life. That greenie has the right idea. Go, go, go." Next time, Chapter 13. Robot Rampage. Thanks to 𝗧𝗏, Alexander Kuxborski, Joker J75, Adam Klydoy, and Immortal 404 for voting. Izuku runs to the center of the site, attracting many robots to his location. He stands there and waits for the horde of bots to converge on him. Izuku decided to use this as training, fighting the robots with minimal property damage. Using light punches, he destroys groups of 3 or 4 with each hit, sending them into each other. Some of the 3-pointers shot rockets which Izuku redirected to the other bots or took head on, leaving himself unscathed. After 5 minutes, the robots stop coming as they have learned that he was an opponent they could not beat. Izuku had managed to gain 67 points, so he started to patrol around helping any examinees who were in danger. Some of them accused him of kill stealing, but as the heroes are not disqualifying him, they just grumbled and continued on their way. Izuku then found a purple-haired kid with a brainwashing quirk similar to his own struggling with a 1-pointer, so he decided to help by tossing him a metal spear made from robot hulls. The brainwasher was confused but grateful for the weapon as he stabbed into the robot. He turned to thank the person who helped him, but he was already gone. There was about 3 minutes left in the exam. Izuku was just wandering around with some robots coming to attack him, bringing his point total to a decent 82. There was a sudden rumbling as the 0-pointer had entered the battlefield. Izuku stood there looking at it as the others were running past him, many looking at him as if he was an idiot. He waited for it to get closer as it destroys the top of a few buildings. Rubble was about to fall on the brunette from earlier, so Izuku dashed over to save her, appearing to teleport to her and back to where he was stood. Surprised by the change in scenery, she thanks her savior. Thank you. No problem. Vertigo resistance adapted. Izuku walks towards the 0-pointer. Wait, where are you going? That robot is worth nothing. We should go. Someone has to stop it. That was a lie. He just wanted to destroy it to annoy Nizu. Izuku rushes and jumps up to the robot's head, his arms turning into red tendrils wrapping around the robot's head, and crushes it into a pile of sparking metal. Izuku then carefully lowers the rest of the robot onto the street. Test over. Is anyone hurt? No, recovery girl, we're all good here. Alright Sunny, thank you for not destroying the place too much. Cementos would have been annoyed. She leaves to tend to the others. Hey, what's your name? Oh, Izuku Midoriya. Thank you for saving me. I'm Achiko Uraraka. Don't mention it, it's what anyone should do. Examinee 456, please attend to the observation booth. In the observation room, the teachers are observing the practical exam. Nizu was quite interested in how Izuku would do with his self-imposed limitations, while All Might desired to see how Izuku had improved. The staff are taking note of a few students. It seemed that it was a good batch, but most of their attention is caught by a green-haired examinee fighting a horde of bots efficiently without too much damage to his surroundings, which was impressive seeing the power of the hits, though it did confuse them as he was not pursuing them, instead let the bots come to him. Aizawa turned to Nizu to see him with a smile, looking at the same screen. Principal, do you know the kid? Of course I know him, he is my student after all. The other now understand the lingering dread that started all those years ago. Wait, if he's your student, has he been going to your office? How did we not notice him? The staff room is literally in the way. Nizu flashes them a cheeky smile. They sigh and look back to the screen. Why isn't he hunting down the robots? Well, we made a deal. If he succeeds, he is allowed to skip all academic classes during his time here. The staff look back to the screen. It seems the bots have decided to not engage with Midoriya, and he began running around the arena helping the other examinees. They were wondering if he knew the special condition of the exam. I can assure you that he does not. Now let's see how he handles this. Nizu presses a big red button, releasing the true obstacle of this exam, the 0-pointer. The staff watched as Midoriya saved an examinee from falling rubble by seemingly teleporting the girl to him. What exactly is his quirk? We've seen him blow robots to smithereens, tank missiles, and now teleportation. Is it energy manipulation? But that doesn't explain the teleportation completely. His quirk is reactive mutation, which allow his body to adapt from harm until he is immune to it. The feats you see are all physical, albeit supercharged by his regeneration. A loud crunch of metal catches the attention of the room. They turn to see the head of the 0-pointer crushed as Midoriya slowly lowered the rest of the 0-pointer onto the road. It seems we got ourselves our first hero course student. Nizu hit the intercom button for Izuku's sight. Examinee 456, please attend to the observation room. After a few minutes, Izuku arrives to the observation room with a knock. Good afternoon, Midoriya, please come in. Izuku opens the door to a sea of heroes, which makes him freak out a bit. Collecting himself, he responds. Good afternoon, Nizu, heroes. I assume this is about my performance in the exam. Yes, it is, Midoriya. You got top scores in the written exam and have gained a total 162 points in the practical exam with 82 villain points and 80 hero points. Beating my record by 40 points, young Midoriya. That's right. Congratulations, you are now an official Hero Corps student of Class 1A. Your homeroom teacher will be 𝗧𝗜𝗧𝗟𝗘, also known as 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗟𝗘. Thank you for having me. 𝗧𝗓𝗧 has an unreadable expression and he makes a noise which could be interpreted as agreement. We'll see what you really are in a week. Next time, Chapter 14. First day, thanks to Joker J75, Adam Clyde Oy, Alexander Kuxborski, Asher 175, and somebody 108 for voting. Izuku wakes up bright and early, makes breakfast, goes for his run, and prepares to set off for his first class. Inko, of course, was fussing over him, asking if he had forgotten anything. He assured her that it was fine and he left. He now stands in front of his classroom with a giant door. He walks into a pretty weird scene, Bakugo with his feet up on the desk with that blue-haired kid robotically reprimanding him. Take your feet off that desk this instant. It is disrespectful to the heroes who came before you. And why should I listen to you, Four Eyes? I'm Tenya Ida from Sumai Academy. Oh, so you're a pompous prick with a stick up their butt. Izuku looks at the scene in amusement. Hey Midoriya, I'm glad you made it in. Izuku turns around to see Uraraka waving at him. Hey, I'm glad you got in too. You there? The blue-haired boy walks up to him and does a 90-degree bow. Izuku looks at him confused. I apologize for my conduct during the exam. It was unbecoming of a future hero. My name is Dash. I've heard, but we should be getting to our seats. Izuku goes to his seat, but to the others he was moving very quickly. Lita noted that the speed that he was going at was about half his top speed. The door suddenly opens, revealing a large yellow sleeping bag with a tried face poking out of it, slowly inching to the teacher's desk. This goes unnoticed by most of the class, excluding Izuku, Momo, and Todoroki. Out of the bag reveals a disheveled-looking man Izuku recognized as Eraserhead. He slams his hands on the podium to get the students' attention. The students scramble to their seats. Aizawa disappointedly says, My name is Aizawa Shota and I'm your homeroom teacher. It took you all 8 seconds to get to your seats and only a few even noticed I was here. Those few seconds are the difference between life and death. Now put on your gym uniforms and meet me at the field. Midoriya should know where it is, just follow him. By the time they got up, Midoriya is already at the door beckoning them to follow. Man, I thought you'd look like a monster under there. They were looking at Izuku's exposed chest. He was muscular, sure, but it looked like he just trained lightly. My quirk just compacts my muscles, but I do get the benefit of having little to no muscle decay. What I would do to have that. My name is Eijiro Kirishima. Izuku, Midoriya. Instant shift cells adapted. They arrive at the field with Aizawa waiting. You're here to do a quirk apprehension test. But what about orientation? Heroes don't waste time. Now you get to use your quirks freely in these tests. That sounds like fun. Fun, huh? How about this? Whoever gets last place is expelled. But that's not fair. Life isn't fair. Natural disasters, villain attacks, discrimination. Our jobs as heroes is to balance the scales. Midoriya, you got first in the entrance exam. What's your highest score on your ball throw? My quirk is a mutation. I don't think my result is best to prove your point. Alright, Bakugo, what was your record? 60 meters? Do it with your quirk. Bakugo goes into the circle and goes into a classic pitcher pose and launches the ball in an explosion. Die. Aizawa then shows his score. It reads 1 kilometer. The students get serious, not wanting to be the one expelled. Izuku and Bakugo stand ready at the start line, though Izuku was a bit looser. The robot counted them down. 3, 2, 1, go. Izuku appears at the finish line almost instantly. with Bakugo following behind with an angry scowl. 0.01 seconds to 94 seconds. Izuku gripped until it hit the machine's limit. 999 kg. Izuku cleared the sandbox. Izuku did pretty well, though he was narrowly beat by Minoru Mineta. The scores for the class were pretty normal for the most part, that is of course not counting Uraraka getting a score of infinity by floating the ball into space. Izuku steps into the circle and feels Aizawa activate his quirk on him. Which was stupid, he already told him his quirk was a mutation. Annoyed, he launches the ball with just a flick of his wrist, getting a score of 20 kilometers. Aizawa noticed that he was not giving it his all throughout the tests. Midoriya, stop holding back or you'll be expelled. Midoriya gets his ball and his body moving like he had no bones gets into a modified pitcher pose. Everyone should hold on to something. They got ready as Izuku's body suddenly whips forward, launching the ball with a shockwave, destroying nearby windows, triggering car alarms, moving clouds, and launching the class including Aizawa back a few meters. Many of them looked in awe at Izuku. Was that good enough, teach? He gets up from the ground and dusted himself off. No, Midoriya, I'm going to need you to do every previous test again. No holding back this time. Aizawa looks at Midoriya's score. Infinity, average speed Mach 12. Midoriya does the tests again. 50-meter dash, air/teleportation, grip strength, machine destroyed, standing long jump, 50 km repeated side steps. Incalculable. Izuku kept pace with Momo, who was doing the race with a scooter. They shook hands during it as they introduced themselves. They ran for so long Aizawa had to call it early as to not waste any more time. After they were done, Midoriya was not even winded. Heightened energy storage, adapted potency increased. Carrot energy reactor, it goes as expected as Izuku folds himself in half. Izuku goes so fast he looked like he had two upper bodies, one laying on the ground and the other at the end of a sit-up. Alright, these are your results. A board turned on displaying their names. Izuku, of course, was first. This had infuriated Bakugo so much he had the bright and logical idea to let out his rage by lunging at Izuku, who turned around bored as he faced Boom Boom Boy. Before Bakugo can get too close, he is restrained by Aizawa using the bandages he had as a scarf. What the hell are these things? Settle down. Whatever grievances you have with Midoriya can be settled during training. He keeps struggling with the restraints. Aizawa is getting annoyed. If you don't stop, you can consider yourself expelled. Bakugo calms down, still with an enraged look on his face. Also, nobody is getting expelled. You'll find your schedule at the podium in class. Aizawa leaves, leaving the students stunned. Next time, Chapter 15. Battle Trials. Thanks to JokerJ75, Adam Clyde Oy, Alexander Kuxborski, and 𝗧𝗏𝗏. Thanks for the votes, and thanks to Adam Clyde, Donwikin 2, Forest Ghost, and Fireflyer32 for commenting. I liked reading your reactions and some of your predictions. Class 1A is seated in their classroom waiting for homeroom to begin, though they are wondering why Midoriya was missing. Aizawa suddenly opens the door as the class gets settled in 4 seconds. Good, they've improved. Aizawa gets to his podium, but before he could speak, a student raised their hand. He allowed them to speak. Sir, do you know why Midoriya is absent? Midoriya will not be joining us in any academic classes as he has already graduated UA academically. You will be seeing him later during heroics. Then where is he now if not in class? He should either be in the gym or the library. Now enough questions, class is in session. Some were jealous of Midoriya, especially Bakugo, who looked like he was about to blow a gasket in his seat. Why the hell does he get to skip classes? I'm the best hero here, I shouldn't need classes. Izuku arrives to class and sits at his desk. Only when he looks up does he realize that the class was staring at him. What's with the looks? Where the hell have you been, you lazy bee? I was in the library. Why? Midoriya, you were gone for the entire morning. We're curious why you are exempted from normal classes. The principal allowed it after taking his test, and besides, you should all sit, teacher's coming. As if on cue, the door flies open. I'm entering the room like a normal person. Excited murmurs sounds all around in the room. Good afternoon, Class 1A. I am All Might, your heroics teacher. Now the most important part of being a hero is style. The left wall of the classroom opens up to reveal suitcases numbered corresponding with their seats. Get changed and meet me at the mock city. The class is gathered at the entrance of the mock city. They are all dressed in their hero costumes. Izuku was wearing a simple dark green armored self-mending bodysuit which covers most of his body, leaving his head and hands exposed, and a utility belt full of medical supplies. The girls had a bit of trouble looking at him without blushing. A short purple grape-headed boy wearing a diaper in the back was on his hand and knees. It should have been me, not him. It's not fair. He was ignored as All Might began class. Now you all truly look the part of a hero, but a hero is more than just looks. All Might pulls out some flashcards from his back pocket. Ahem, all of you will be randomly split into teams of 2. The scenario is villains have hit a nuke in a building. It is the hero's job to either capture the villains or touch the bomb, while the villain's goal is to run out the clock or defeat both heroes. Any questions? How do we pick our partner? With ease. All Might pulls out 2 boxes to select the teams. Got teamed as heroes with Toru Hagakure, who Izuku noticed was just a pair of gloves and shoes. Please don't tell me you're naked. Izuku sees the glove go to scratch what is presumably the back of her head. He got his answer. Okay, you are not going into a fight like that. No offense, but against Bakugo and Todoroki there ain't not much you can do. I believe that you could have done recon, but with the ice under you you're not sneaking up on anybody, and you would be risking hypothermia and potentially frostbite. That's a very good point, young Midoriya. Hagakure, you will be with me and be Midoriya's mission control, keeping an eye on the villain's movements. But what about Midoriya? It wouldn't be fair for him to fight alone. It would be unfair. Well, Midoriya, are you up for the challenge? Of course I am. A hero never backs down from a fight. Then let the training begin. Izuku walks into the freezing cold building and is told the location of the bomb and goes straight to it, sensing that Todoroki was there too. On the way, Hagakure informed him that Bakugo was nearby. Bakugo came flying down a hallway with explosions at him with his classic right hook primed and ready. Izuku takes the hit head on, not bugging an inch, and in the smoke of the explosion grabs Bakugo and throws him back. Potency increased, kinetic shock resistance potency increased, heat resistance potency increased, heightened eardrum durability. It seems some things don't change, do they, Kaken? Don't call me that. Punching bag. Before Bakugo can lunge at him, Izuku appears in front of him and punches him in the gut, sending him back down the hallway and into the back wall. He slowly gets up and raised his arm to pull the pin on his gauntlet. Bakugo, stop, you'll collapse the whole building. His warning is unheeded as the pin is pulled. Izuku tried to get close enough to destroy the gauntlet, but he was too late as it fired at point blank. Smoke and dust obscures the camera as the class waited in bated breath for what had happened. The smoke clears surprisingly. It hadn't done too much damage to the building, that however the reason for that would become obvious. Izuku was on the floor, smoke coming off his body. The top half was charred black with red flesh seen between the cracks of blackened skin. His skull was exposed, his eyes now missing, leaving black sockets of writhing flesh within. Bakugo froze at the sight before him as he quickly removing the bracers from his shaking arms while breathing heavily. The bracers crack onto the floor and rolls right beside Midoriya's smoldering body. All Might and the class stared at the screen. Some had puked at the sight of Midoriya. All Might couldn't believe the sight before him as he knew he was very resilient, but he held out hope that Midoriya could recover from this. As Bakugo was having a panic attack, Midoriya's body suddenly sits up and slowly rolls his shoulder. Charred flesh falls off his body and onto the floor, revealing healthy skin underneath. This continues until his entire upper body was free from it, his suit slowly covering him back up. This brought a wave of relief from the class. Bakugo looks at him in fear, seeing the person he had killed come back to life. All Might speaks from the speakers in the room. Young Midoriya, are you all right? His vocal cords, still new, causes the next words to be a bit hoarse and sluggish. I'm fine. Do you wish to continue? I do. All right. Match resumed. Katsuki. Bakugo disqualified. These words began to echo in Bakugo's head as Izuku continues to the bomb room. Bakugo is led out of the building by some robot's eyes still clouded over in shock. Opening the door to the bomb room, Midoriya is met with a wall of ice quickly lurching toward him. He allows it encase him. Todoroki, seeing this, breathes out. You shouldn't have come here alone. Suddenly the ice cracks and shatters, flinging shards of ice at Todoroki. Make sure your enemy is out before you let your guard down. All Might hadn't even announced your win. He sent another wave of ice at Midoriya, hoping to catch him again. Did you really think that would work that twice? You should consider other options. I am not breaking my pledge. Another wave of ice is sent after him, albeit slightly slower. Izuku, ignoring what he said, dodges and goes punch him. Todoroki summons an ice wall to protect himself, but it was no use as Izuku's fist goes straight through it and connects with his chin, knocking him out. Cold resistance adapted Izuku destroys the ice cocoon around the bomb and touches it. Heroes win. Izuku carries Todoroki out of the building and takes him to Recovery Girl, who lightly reprimands him for knocking him out but is at least thankful they aren't hurt too badly. Izuku then goes into the observation room to rejoin his class. They immediately crowd him, asking if he's okay and that he should have stayed in the nurse's office. He calms them down and excuses himself. All Might bids him farewell and continues with the other matches. The matches after were a lot more serious, as a sense of fear was imbued in everyone as they stared, pulling their punches, using less power. Each match were more about strategy than pure power. The class ends with a sense of consequence. That with great power comes great discipline to hone it and use it for good. Their imagination ran wild with nightmares of dismembered and disfigured villain made from their own actions. Next time, Chapter 16, Rescue Training. Thanks to Fenrir 52, Joker J 75, Alexander Kuxborski, Adam Clyde Oy, Somebody 108, and Inferno Scorpion 1 for voting. The next day of class was weird, as the incident yesterday had yet to leave their minds. Bakugo was weirdly quiet, not looking at anyone. Aizawa walked into an orderly and quiet classroom. Good morning, class. I've seen the recording of the yesterday's training. It is good that you have taken the lesson to heart, but don't let one accident hold you back. Bakugo. He raised his head. If you had fired that shot at anyone else, you would have been in cuffs before you left the mock city. He looks back down, reliving the moment, trying and failing to stop his shaking hands. But Midoriya has argued your case. You will be allowed to continue here on some conditions. You will have mandatory therapy sessions with Hound Dog however often he decides. Your gauntlets are removed from your hero costume until there is proof that you will not misuse them, and if another incident occurs to anyone, you will be expelled under surveillance. Is that understood? He nods, angry. His dream had to be saved by that bee. Good. Now today you will be making a decision that will affect the rest of your time here. He pauses as the class waits in dread. It is time to elect your class president. It's something normal. Izuku was in the library reading a book on advanced quirk biology theory when an alarm sounded, indicating that the walls of UA had been breached. He set his book down and leaves to see what's going on. He suddenly feels a new quirk appear from quirk progenitor, detailing a touched base decay quirk. He looks around and sees it in the staff room. He runs into the staff room to see a purple portal closing near All Might's desk. Izuku uses telekinesis to try and pull whatever is on the other side. A dismembered head flies at him as the portal completely closed. Izuku looks at the hand on the ground. It was gray with a brass connection port at the wrist with 2 holes. He looks around for a plastic bag and uses it to pick up the hand. He finds that Class 1A's schedule was left open on All Might's desk. Outside, the heroes were speculating how the media have gotten in. All they have is a disintegrated gate. Midoriya suddenly calls out to them, saying to come inside and that he knew something. The teacher gather in the staff room with Midoriya, telling them to not touch anything. He tells them of the closing portal near All Might's desk and shows them the dismembered hand, and they take it to the police. Midoriya asks to speak to Nizu in private, and they go to the principal's office. In the office, Izuku recounts truthfully what had happened. So whoever we're dealing with is able to teleport. Midoriya, did they take anything? No, but the Class 1A schedule was open on the desk. The people that infiltrated UA are affiliated with All for One. Fact. The people that infiltrated UA plan to attack. Fact. The people that infiltrated UA plan to attack today. Fact. Nizu digs through his drawer and fishes out a small device and give it to Izuku. That is a SOS signal with a deadman connection to my computer. When they attack you have my permission to use all for one to take any quirk necessary ensure the class's safety and to prevent escape. Izuku was on the bus with the rest of his class as they spoke about today's exercise. 𝗧𝗜𝗧𝗟𝗘 was sitting next to him and asked him a question. Hey, Midoriya, I was curious what is your quirk? The rest of the class as if planned quiets down to hear his answer. My quirk is reactive mutation. My body becomes more immune to harm the more I experience it and it came with a healing factor. So don't worry about anything happening like yesterday. I'm better than I was. Man, that's one strong quirk. Mine only hardens my body. Your quirk is strong too. I didn't start off like this, I had to build it up. Don't discredit your quirk like that. Thanks man. Then you've been training a lot Midoriya to be able to beat both Bakugo and Todoroki. I could beat him any day of the week Pikachu. Right? Settle down, we're here. The class get out of the bus to a domed building. They enter inside and see the space hero 13. She introduced them to the USJ aka the Unforeseen Simulation Joint. She then gave a little monologue on the importance of rescue heroes and how a quirk doesn't decide what hero you could be. As this was happening, preemptive warning went off at the fountain and Izuku pressed the SOS signal. A purple portal appears at the fountain and out from it was a horde of villains and the final 3 Izuku recognized. The purple fog man he bumped into and gained spatial awareness. The person who had decay and seeing the hands around his body now knew he was in UA this morning. The last was a giant muscular black-bluish villain with their brain exposed just like the one All Might brought in when his quirk was analyzed by Recovery Girl. Aizawa, keep an eye on that purple fog guy, I believe that's their getaway. 13 𝗧𝗜𝗧𝗟𝗘 the class back to the bus. Midoriya, go with 13. I can handle this alone. I know you feel a responsibility as a hero to make the big sacrifice to buy us time to retreat, but we could actually win this, you just need to keep an eye on Fogman. Arcs of black and green lightning surround Izuku's hand as he flicks his finger launching a whirlwind at the group of villains, sending them flying through the air. The main 3 in the back were protected by the bird villain. You were right about me holding back on the first day. Aizawa froze at the sight of the defeated villains, but this slip in concentration allows the fog villain to attack the class, sending some of them away and injuring 13 while Ida had ran to get help. Noma, get that green-haired brat. The Nomu rush towards Izuku, who does the same with the help of velocity manipulation. They meet halfway between the bottom of the stairs and the fountain with both of their hands interlocked in a stalemate. Shock absorption taken, super regeneration taken, potency increased. Kinetic shock immunity. Izuku pushes it back, sending it to next to decay guy, breaking its back. Noma, get up and kill him. It tries, but only its upper body is able to move. It uses its arms to drag his limp legs to Izuku. Izuku goes and grabs the Nomu and uses ventriloquist. Sleep. The Nomu falls to the ground. Handyman is confused and angrily commanded the beast to get up and fight, but it doesn't respond. Fogman appears once more. Shigaraki, we need to retreat. Kurogiri, we are not leaving without fighting All Might. The Nomu is already out of commission. The fight is lost. I think you're both forgetting someone. Izuku was already holding on to Kurogiri when he said that. Cloud taken, GPS taken, quirk synergy. Cloud, GPS and GT, warp gate, sleep. Kurogiri falls to the floor. Shigaraki, seeing this, tried to use his quirk on Izuku. Decay taken, skin irritation resistance adapted, sleep, again with the use of ventriloquist puts him to sleep. Aizawa just stared in shock as one of his students just handled the main villains easily, but something was bothering him. How did Midoriya make them pass out by just touching them? He doesn't have time to keep pondering as the rest of the class begins to gather the top of the stairs. Many of them were a bit roughed up but otherwise fine. The door suddenly bursts open and the class gets ready to fight whoever it was. The dust clears, revealing All Might in his suit. Have no fear, for I am here. All Might. All Might looks around and see Midoriya near the fountain keeping an eye on the villains. It seems I'm a bit late. Let's get you all out of here. Next time, Chapter 17. Past Evils. Thanks to Asher 175, Fenrir 52, Lasagna, Joker J 75, Adam Clyde Oy, Alexander Kuxborski, Schwebster, Somebody 108, Merfritz 1, and Easy Bang Keezy 1 for voting. Aizawa had been called up to 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗧𝗧's office. He was about to knock on the door when it opens before he gets the chance to. Aizawa, please come in and have a seat. Would you like some tea? Please just get to the point. Sit. Aizawa sits down a bit wary of 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗧's tone. Oboro Shirakumo is 𝗎𝗪𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧 the teleporter. Aizawa sits there processing the information. His friend that died saving people had been experimented on and turned into a fog person. How do we know it was him? That requires a whole other explanation. Do you know of 𝗎𝗪𝗢𝗏? The quirk thief? I've heard rumors, but he's real, isn't he? Yes, very much so. I believe that Oboro was not supposed to die that day. 𝗎𝗪𝗢's target was you. Oboro was an unexpected success. Aizawa remained silent. Now on to how we know of this. I believe that it would be best explained by Midoriya. The office door opened, revealing Midoriya with a serious face. He explained his history with 𝗎𝗪𝗢 and the true nature of his quirk, excluding one for all. Aizawa sat there silent until. When I took the quirks off of 𝗎𝗪𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧, I had taken Cloud and GPS. We believe that these two quirk combined to allow teleportation. Where is he? He should still be in police custody. Aizawa gets up and leaves the office. Is he gonna be okay? He'll be fine. The office door suddenly opens to reveal Detective Tsukachi. The lab results came back from the hand. It belonged to a deceased Kotaro Shimura. Izuku's body began shifting until Nana appeared beside him and with an apprehensive face asks, "What happened to my son?" Tsukachi was a bit weirded out by this and looked to Izuku, who explained who she was. Well, Mrs. Shimura, the hand Izuku had taken from Shigaraki belonged to your son Kotaro, who was declared dead over a decade ago. Him and the rest of his family went missing in their home. Their property was turned into a crater of dust. After testing the rest of the hands found on Shigaraki, they were identified as the missing Shimura family, but one person was unaccounted for, Tenko Shimura. Nana processes the information as 𝗧𝗓𝗧𝗧𝗧 decides to confirm something. Tenko Shimura is alive. Fact. Shigaraki used their quirk on the Shimura family. Fact. Shigaraki is a part of the Shimura family. Fact. The detective eyes widened at the implication. Shigaraki is Tenko Shimura. Fact. Nana leaves without a word to confront her grandson. Along the way he sees All Might and calls out to him. Tashinori. Nana grabs All Might and drags him with her to the station. She uses his clout to get to talk to her grandson. Sitting in an interrogation room was Shigaraki, handcuffed to the table, his head down, wondering who else was going to speak to him after the last guy. He has been trying to use his quirk, but he can't for some reason. They must have put quirk cancelers on him. The door opens to a raven-haired woman who looked strangely familiar to him, but he didn't remember where. A slight headache strikes at the thought. She sits in front of him and is looking at him intently. With a raspy voice he asks, "So what the hell else do you heroes want to know?" She frowns at the question. "Does the surname Shimura mean anything to you?" Another headache clashes. As the name was spoken, his head now in his hands, he grunted at the pain. "It means nothing to me, Tenko Shimura." Ugh. He presses his head into the metal table, trying to suppress the pain. Nana allows him to collect himself. "That's my name." He responds, his voice smoother, calm. "Do you remember what happened to your family? I killed them with my quirk. Dad kicked me out for finding picture of grandma." Nana teared up at that and was angry her son would do something like that. "I was petting Manchan when he suddenly turned to dust. I cried, confused why had this happened. Hannah came out, she turned to dust along with Mom. Dad saw what happened and I killed him. It feel good. Retribution for what he had done to me. He hated heroes. He hated grandma. He hated what I was." He was suddenly pulled into a hug by Nana. Tears wetting his head. "I'm sorry I had to leave. I'm sorry." Shigaraki didn't know what to do, but this felt nice. To have someone touch him without the fear of his quirk killing them. The tender love of family. Nana pulls away and he gets a good look at her. "Grandma." "Yes, Tenko. I'm Nana Shimura, your grandmother. I never should have left you alone." "What happened? Why were you gone?" "I was going to fight 𝗎𝗪𝗢𝗏. I didn't want him to find my family, so I put your father into an orphanage." I told All Might to not contact him because that might have led All for One to him. I couldn't take that risk. I died fighting him and he wanted to use you to go after All Might. But he saved me. When no one cared, not even the heroes. He had his hands and eyes everywhere. How long were you alone before he found you? A few hours. I tried to get help, but they all ignored me. A hero saw me and looked at me in disgust. He must have known that you would have been perfect to be molded in his own image and use you to throw off All Might. He pauses too at the realization that his life with his sensei was a fabrication, a ruse to mold a perfect villain. A tool to destroy whoever he sees fit. All for One is Ollie dash. Black sludge began to pour out of his mouth. Nana shocked by this, knowing All for One had plans for him. Tenko, don't let him know, you remember. We'll get you out soon. The interrogation room fades from view and replacing it is All for One, who can seem connected to many machines keeping him alive. Tamura, I hope your stay at the precinct wasn't too unbearable. Tenko gets up slowly and gets into his previous persona. I'm sorry I failed to kill All Might, sir. If that green-haired brat didn't disable the Nomu, it would have been so much easier. All for One shuddered at the mention of the boy. He activates quirk sight and sees that Tamura was now quirkless. This was not good, and now that the Nomu and Kurogiri was captured, it was more than likely that their quirks were taken too. No matter, they could just rebuild. Now he needs to replace his student's quirk. Thank God he always had copies. After all, 1 is none, 2 is 1. If it's important, always have a backup. Next time, Chapter 18, Sports Festival. Thank to Somebody 108, Joker J75, Need Sleep 123, Anti-Superstar, Arsimher, Inferno Scorpion 1, Adam Clyde Oi, Webster, Sucks, Juice the 2ND, Crosschara 552, Fenrir 52, Non-Contrified 81, Tahir 0464, Murfreeze 1, and N0 Hose for voting. All Might bursts into the interrogation room but finds Nana sitting alone and Tenko was gone. He's still alive, All Might. We need to beat him for real this time. Nana and All Might leave the precinct after informing them of Shigaraki's disappearance. The next day, the press were hounding UA to get answers to how the break-in occurred. Nizu was on stage along with Power Loader. The break-in yesterday was conducted by a villain group by the name of the League of Villains. They had entered using a teleportation quirk. We are currently developing tech which will prevent this situation from ever happening again. Pro Hero 13 was injured severely during the incident. Any updates on their condition? They are in the most capable hands and is currently resting. How are the public able to trust that an incident like this will not occur at the scheduled sports festival later this month? The festival will be staffed by the finest heroes of Japan, including All Might. Villains would need to make large moves to ruin it. Class 1 was having homeroom with Aizawa. Now I know everything has been a bit hectic, but the fight is not over yet. The class is once again left in suspense. The sport festival will take place in 2 weeks. But sir, isn't it a bad time? UA was just broken into. Unfortunately, the event was too big to cancel and we're using it as a show of resilience. Showing that the future heroes will be stronger than the last. It is also an opportunity to sell yourself so you get good internship offers. The bell rings signaling lunch. The class was exited for the coming festival, and when they opened the door they were met with a large group of students. A purple-haired and tried-looking boy blocks their way. Well, if it isn't the survivors. What are you people doing here? It's lunch. They're here to scope out the competition, dumbass. If that's how the prestigious one acts, I don't think they will last here long. What did you say, eyebags? Bakugu, stop antagonizing them. You're not doing anyone a favor by yelling. You don't tell me what to do, nerd. A voice is heard from the back of the crowd. A green-haired student pushes through the crowd and stands in the doorway of the class. Excuse his yelling. I'm Izuku Midoriya of Class 1A. Why did you help me during the entrance exam? We're heroes, why wouldn't I help someone in need? Anyway, you guys should scatter, lunch is awaiting. Not yet, we're all here to declare war on all of 1A. If you don't perform well during the festival, your seats are open for the taking, so watch out. I believe that all of 1A will agree. We look forward to what you're gonna bring. Izuku walks past him, but as he quietly says to the purple-haired boy. He turns around to confront him, but he already disappeared into the crowd. For the next 2 weeks the students trained. Some of Class 1A tried to find Midoriya to get advice, but they couldn't find him. Izuku had spent the time at home with Nizu's permission training to use the new quirks he got, focusing mainly on Warp Gate as it would be useful in a pinch. He knew that eventually his ability to take and give quirks will be revealed, but he trains to ensure that the fallout is mitigated. The day of the festival arrives. The class is in the waiting room awaiting their announcement. Todoroki walks up to Midoriya. In my opinion, you are the strongest in this class. Thanks, but don't think that you will be the one to win this whole festival. Watch your back. Gossipy chatter appeared in the room. The strongest in class was challenged. They wait for his response. I gladly accept the challenge, but don't discount the rest of the class. 'Cause if you do, you'll find yourself alone at the end of the line. He gets up as the intercom activates. Students, please gather for the opening ceremony. Game faces everyone. The world's watching. They step out onto the sunlight to a cheering crowd while being introduced by class by midnight. Now I invite Izuku Midoriya, our number 1 in the entrance exam, to give the students pledge. Izuku seemingly teleports to the stage, making Midnight jump, which was appreciated by the audience. Midnight hands him the microphone. No man is created equal, was a statement I learned young. Everyone was blessed with a quirk acceptable in society. Quirks using BLD, pain, another person's body, and monstrous forms unappealing to the public are cast out as villains, criminals, a disaster waiting to happen. Everyone in this school is lucky to be here, even if they don't believe so. The other classes have seen it fit to challenge the entirety of Class 1A after the USJ incident. They believe our survival a great first practical experience. They do not know of the danger present there. They do not know of the monster made to defeat All Might, and I believe my next words best represent our reply. Show us what you've got. Cheers billow out from the stands as Midnight introduced the first event. The obstacle course. The students gather at the starting line, which lead to a narrow entryway to the rest of the course. Izuku stands in the back relaxed while the other students eyed him suspiciously, wondering what he will do. The race began with Todoroki spreading ice all over the entrance and surfing above them. Some of the students were stuck to the floor as the ice creeped up their legs, so Izuku went around to help, though to everyone else a gust of wind blew by as they were freed and they found the student representative in front of them. Sorry about him. He'll get better in the future. Anyway, let's get moving. The stunned students began to run out, leaving Midoriya alone at the starting room. Midnight walks up to him. Midoriya, why aren't you going with them? Just wanted to make things a bit more interesting. And Shoto, Todoroki has made it to our final obstacle. The landmines. And it seems Katsuki Bakugo is hot on his tail. Get back here, Two-Face. I guess that long enough. What? Midoriya disappeared, leaving Midnight confused, but not long after a shockwave propagated from his position, pushing Midnight back. And it seems our student representative has decided to join the race at a dazzling speed. He's already passed the pits and is quickly gaining on our front runners. Midoriya was now at the minefield. Todoroki was already mostly across, being slowed down by Bakugo. Midoriya ran through the field, stepping on the mines to give himself a boost. Todoroki and Bakugo see a pink trail coming straight at them, and seeing it was Midoriya, Bakugo ran after him with Todoroki running behind. Get back here, nerd. You sound like a broken record, Kaken. Bakugo yells as Izuku runs past them and arrives back into the stadium. And we have our winner. The crowd cheers and applause can be heard as confetti rained down from the sky in celebration. Todoroki arrives after Bakugo, giving him third place. This isn't over, Midoriya. Next time, Chapter 19, King of the Hill. Thanks to 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗘, Murfritz 1, Anti-Superstar, Need Sleep 123, Darkness King 54, Joker J 75, Fenrir 52, Adam Clyde Oi, 𝗧𝗏, and Ganter 2BS for voting. The 40 advancing students gather in front of the stage with Midnight rolling the roulette once more. It lands on King of the Hill. The game was simple. The greater the zone you reside in, the greater the points. A small mountain grew from the middle of the stadium. The student's starting position is based on how well they did in the last event. Students can team up in teams of 4 or go alone. Whoever holds the highest points by the end of 15 minutes wins the event. Midoriya, of course, was to be starting at the top. Many students were eyeing him trying to get on his team, but before they could try, he jumps straight up and lands on the mountain and sits down waiting for the event to begin. The students were a bit surprised at the jump, but they quickly get into position. The countdown began and the fight began with Team Bakugo and Todoroki rushing up the mountain toward Izuku, but before they can get too close they were pushed back by an air cannon fired by Izuku with just a flick sending them halfway down the mountain. The other students saw this and decided to rush him all at once. A large mob of people appear around Izuku, all launching their own attacks at him. A cloud of dust obscures the top of the mountain, leaving the audience in suspense. The dust clears, revealing Midoriya virtually unharmed, with students surrounding him were confused why he wasn't hurt, a sentiment shared by the audience. Their curiosity was quickly quelled by present mic. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our student representative Izuku Midoriya and his quirk. Reactive mutation, which means the more he is hurt, the less he is affected by it, and as you can assume he has experienced a lot. Even with the full might of the hero course, they can barely get a scratch on him. Many heroes were amazed by the quirk. It being able to shrug off attacks greatly interested them. Even a certain rabbit had taken note. Izuku stands there looking around at the shocked faces of his attackers. He waits for them to make the first move. They do nothing, still debating on what to do, so Izuku, getting bored, make his own move. He claps, sending a shockwave all around him, sending the students off the peak. Many of them decided it's not worth it and began fighting for second place. The event finishes with Midoriya in first place, followed by Team Todoroki, Team Bakugo and Team Shinso. There were still some missing spots for the final event, so they were filled by Team Tetsu. The final event was announced as a battle tournament. They were allowed a 30-minute lunch PRD, which Midoriya was going to use to look around the food stalls, but fate had other plans as Todoroki wanted to speak with him privately. They were in a hallway under the stadium. You may have won the first 2 events, but don't think I wouldn't be gunning after you. If you're that serious about winning this thing, why haven't you been doing all you can to do it? 'Cause from what I've seen, you don't respect anyone else besides maybe me. I have given my all. Fiction, no you haven't. You're a one-trick pony. Though your ice is powerful, you're not trained enough to actually use it for every situation. You use it for every maneuver you make, but you don't have the finesse. There is no control other than power output. I've been wondering. I know your quirk is half hot, half cold. Why aren't you using your fire? I'm not using it. Because of your pledge. Is that going to stop you from saving someone? I vowed to not use his fire. I'll assume you have an issue with Endeavor and he gave you that scar. He is responsible. So he caused someone to do it. Look, it doesn't matter what he did, I'm winning this event with only my ice. You really are arrogant. You really think you would win this while using power, which you know is not enough. You've already gotten 3rd and 2nd. Don't you think it's time to pick up the pace? You don't know me. You don't know what he did to me, then enlighten me. Todoroki told him of his upbringing. The training, isolation, never a good word to say, no love except for his mother, which was also taken away. He spoke to his siblings, 2 others which were cast aside and another who had passed. Fiction, guess not. I promised myself I would never use his quirk again. You want him to be angry at you, right? I despise him. Then why are you here? Why are you in UA training to be a hero? Wouldn't he be angrier if you aren't a hero? 'Cause at the end of the day, even if you become number 1 with just your ice, it is still the Todoroki family name that has succeeded all might way after his retirement. Stop fighting for your father dream. I'm not. And yet you're here fighting for number 1. Everyone in that stand knows you're the son of Endeavor. They know you have had early training from the number 2. You winning was the expected outcome. It didn't matter if you won with only your ice, to everyone else you were holding back out of courtesy. I'm not using it. Then pull out. If you're not fighting to win fully and absolutely, then what's the point of winning? An empty jab at Endeavor, who will still see this as nothing but a rebellious phase. Your words mean nothing. I will win with only my ice and nothing else. He storms off in anger, feeling like the conversation was worthless. Izuku watches as he leaves. Izuku turns to look down the hallway where he saw some blonde hair which had just ducked behind a wall. I know this wasn't the best place to have a private conversation, but I didn't expect you to be a stalker, Kaken. The hall remains silent. Izuku shrugs, walk out of the hallway. He had felt his presence when he got there, but though noting of it, allowing him to stay and stalk them. Next time, Chapter 20, Battle Tournament. Thanks to 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗘𝗧𝗟𝗏, Joker J75, Adam Clyde Oi, Anti-Superstar, Fenrir 52, Sucks, Need Sleep 123, Schwebster, Merfritz 1, Don Joaquin 2, Non-Contrified 81, and Demarest, for voting. The matches were announced, and it seemed that Izuku will be fighting the brainwasher who goes by the name of Hitoshi Shinso. I look forward to outmatch student rep. As Izuku turns to him to respond, but his mouth is covered by a fleshy tail. Shinso walks away. Don't respond to him. He takes control of people by response. I know. If he was smart, he wouldn't have tried to use it here. Thanks for the warning though. No problem, Midoriya. The match came as Midoriya and Shinso stand on the concrete platform as Present Mike gave them an introduction. Midnight was on the side refereeing the match. Alright boys, I want a clean match here today. Nothing below the belt and lethal blows are grounds for disqualification. Is that understood? The two combatants both nod. Then let the match begin. Let's have a good fight. Izuku nods in response. The both of them stand there seemingly having the same plan. Are you so stuck up as to not even grace me with a verbal response? You people in Class A are all the same. Thinking you're all so much better than the rest of us. Isn't that right, student rep? Izuku remains silent. I'll take your silence as an admission then. Your life must have been great. Cheers all around for the future hero. You say you know what it's like for those less fortunate, but you can never truly know, can you? I can't, I've got him. But that doesn't mean I don't have the right to help. Just as I did for you during the entrance exam. What? Am I right to assume that your quirk has you viewed by others as a villain? Only the ignorant and blind would believe that. You are not your quirk, neither is the quirk you. I know it's been tough for you. You look skinny as if you haven't eaten or trained much dash. But that's where you're wrong. I have trained. Yet you are not at your full potential. What were you going to do if you were fighting in a group? They can easily get each other out of your quirk's effects. You may not believe it, but their words have gotten to you. Thinking you're no better than what your quirk makes you. They gotten so deep in your head that the only value you see in yourself is your quirk. You unconsciously neglect to even train your body. This seems to get under his skin as Shinso rushes toward Izuku. Izuku stays still, letting him get his first hit in. Shinso punches him in the chest, then immediately recoiled in pain, holding his fist. He collects himself and tries to push Midoriya, but he doesn't budge. He starts to get desperate, hitting Midoriya while not caring for how bruised his fists are getting. Midoriya picks him up and moves him out of bounds. To the audience, he was leaving after images as he moved to the edge of the stage. Hitoshi Shinso is out of bounds. Izuku Midoriya moves on to the next match. Midoriya puts Shinso's arm over his shoulder. Headache resistance. Come on, let's get you to recovery, girl, and I think you've got yourself a couple of fans. Shinso looks up to see some of his classmates commending him for his effort and bravery, and even a few gazes thrown by heroes which held much the same sentiment. The rest of the matches in round 1 continue with Todoroki, Ida, Tokoyami, and Bakugo advancing into round 2. That last round was quite brutal according to the audience, but it was what heroes will be faced with in an unfavorable battle. Izuku's next fight was with Todoroki. As he was walking to his waiting room, he turns the corner to see the flame hero himself, who seemed to be waiting for him. Impressive quirk you've got there, kid, and from what I've heard, strong enough to rival All Might. You'll be a great stepping stone for my masterpiece. You mean you, son? Teach, of course, who else would I be referring to? Then don't speak of people like their merchandise. Tongue. Boy, what can't take bandash? Endeavor enraged throws a flame-powered punch straight at Izuku's face, but it was blocked by a palm. Potency increased. Carrot heat immunity. You really shouldn't be assaulting anyone who gets under your skin, especially in the halls of UA. Endeavor, realizing the implication, looks around for cameras but sees none. He glances back at Izuku to find that he was gone. Midoriya and Todoroki stand once more on the raised concrete platform. Todoroki has an angrier look on him. He must have spoken to Endeavor. Ready? They both nod. Let the match begin. Heaven-piercing ice wall. Todoroki sends a huge glacier of ice encasing Izuku in it. The audience was in shock and felt a bit disappointed that the match was so quick and anticlimactic, but as midnight was about to call the match, the glacier cracks and explodes, sending large chunks of ice near the crowd, and in the middle of the destroyed glacier stood Midoriya, who looked completely unharmed, bits of ice still stuck to his clothes. The crowd cheered at the spectacle. Midoriya rips a chunk of ice from beside him, throwing it up and down like a baseball. Todoroki, though you knew that wasn't going to work. He says nothing as he sends another wave of ice, which was immediately blown apart by throwing the chunk of ice, turning it into snow. This continues for a few short minutes as the audience was getting bored. They were dissatisfied that this was all the son of Endeavor could do when faced with an opponent resistant to their attacks, using the same attack over and over and saving themselves by using ice walls. Todoroki could feel their dissatisfied looks, especially his father's. He began slowing down, ice patches appearing on his right side and tiny flickers of flame of the left. The ice moved slower, generated smaller. Consequences from quirk exhaustion as explained to the class by Bakugo in the stands. Quirks were like muscles, use it too much it's bound to break, and Midoriya barely had to use his. Todoroki stood in a nest of ice, keeping himself in place, panting out cold fog. If you're not giving it your all, why fight it? You've been sending the same attack over and over, seeing it parried over and over should have gotten the point across. I need to win. Then why haven't you tried anything different? And I don't mean your fire dash, his fire. Your fire, even without it you should have had a plan if things went south. All you've done so far has only tire yourself out, and in the eyes of the public you look